Right, so we're gonna move on to blue now. Looking at commons once again. Got another vanilla creature, Aegis Turtle. Single blue mana for an 0/5. It's a big butt. It's a really big butt for 1 mana.
It is. Unfortunately, with like the theme of the set kind of looking like go wide and mass pump everything, makes this quite a bit
Mm-hmm.
worse. I have liked cards like this in some sets. Like it can be a ton of life gain for a blue deck, but there's not a very efficient blue spell that like draws cards very quickly. Uh, I think this is going to be really good in the sideboard though.
Yeah. You mentioned not good against go wide decks, but pretty good against like 4 power matters decks. Just being a 1 mana answer to any large big thing.
Unless they have like a pick, like it's not
Yeah,
hard for that
it's not
equation
foolproof.
to change. Yeah.
Yeah, not foolproof. I think sideboard grade is pretty apt for this. Like I can't imagine you ever really wanting to main deck this.
I think it'll happen once, but yeah, I expect it
Just
to be more
once.
often.
Just once. All right. Yeah. Did you want to give it like an actual grade or just a sideboard grade?
I'm fine giving this a sideboard
All
grade.
right.
Like blue red doesn't really want it.
Nah.
Blue black might. Blue green probably doesn't. And blue, I guess I didn't do blue white. I don't think blue white does either. So
Yeah, blue white maybe the deck that would like most want it, just as a ground blocker for a flying deck, but even still, probably not great. Fleeting Distraction is up next. Single blue mana for an instant. You draw a card. I'm reading this in reverse order because that's an important part. But you draw a card, and the effect here is target creature gets -1, -0 until end of turn.
yeah, it's hard to find spots like people who are assuming, oh, you're going to win a combat and draw a card. Like those spots don't come up that often.
Mm-hmm.
But just cycling for 1 mana as a blue instant as a common is going to be pretty important in this set. Like we've seen a couple spells payoffs. It fuels your threshold. I think this card's going to be pretty good. I think this is like a C plus.
Yeah, I do too. It's very, I mean, almost exactly the same card as the one we saw in Dominaria United. That was like the blue one with the red kicker cost. And, you're going to have very similar play patterns to that and like Balmor. And you're going to see in a few minutes here Tolarian Terrors in the set. So all the friends that play well with those cards, this is going to play well with. So, yeah, just C plus.
Yeah, I'm going to go C plus
Okay,
for
sounds good.
destruction.
Witness Protection. Ooh, okay. So we just saw Unable to Scream. Witness Protection was the first kind of card like that, or at least one of the first ones, and much, much worse. So this is a single blue mana for an aura, enchant creature. Enchanted creature loses all abilities and is a green and white citizen creature with base power toughness 1/1 named Legitimate Business Person. So set context aside for a second. 1/1 just so much worse than 0/2. Right? Just the ability for this to like peck in, team up in a double block, that is so much worse than the 0/2. But this is also in a set with a go wide theme, which makes this kind of just like removal spell much worse. And also in a set with a decent number of incidental enchantment hate cards, which matters for the other cards like this too. But just if this is a card that you're excited about, don't be. It would be my advice.
Yeah, no Eerie,
Yeah.
no Glimmer Burst, no real reasons to play this, I don't think.
Yep.
I think this is closer to Midnight Haunting than Unable to Scream.
Yeah. That said, are we going way down to F or?
I'll give it a D minus.
Yeah, I think so too. Next up, we have Elementalist Adept. So this is one in a blue for a 2/1 flash prowess.
Yeah, the flash on this is nice.
Yeah, it's a fine too. Like nothing exciting.
Yeah, I mean, blue often doesn't get good twos, and this is one that, like, in blue, black, and blue, red, I think I'll be fine with playing these.
Yeah, I think so too. Yeah, that's a good point. Like sometimes blue gets really embarrassing 2-drops, and this one's not embarrassing. So yeah, you want to give this like a C minus then?
Yeah.
Yeah, sounds good to me. Next up, we've got Strix Lookout, 1 in a blue for a 1/2 Vigilant Flyer. It's a bird, and it has 1 in a blue, tap it, draw a card, then discard a card. So a pretty inefficient looting ability on a not very exciting body.
There are some cards that trigger off of drawing your second card for the turn.
That's fair. That's fair.
So that this is a good way to do that. And like it is a flying 2 drops for the blue white deck, and it attacks. Like flying is going to be a pretty important ability in this set, I feel.
Yeah, I think
Well, still
you're
not super high on this.
yeah, not high on it either. I think it's like a D plus. Like you're gonna play it sometimes as like a two. Like it'll be your 2 drop of choice in like a flying deck. But even then, I don't think it's gonna be. Or sorry, common 2 drop of choice, I should say, in blue. Even then, I don't think it's gonna be great though.
I'll go to C minus for the
Okay,
lookout.
yeah, fair enough. We've got Runaway Together. Back again. This is 1 in a blue for an instant. Choose 2 target creatures controlled by different players. Return those creatures to their owner's hands. All right.
Yeah, so this was really good in Eldraine, and then I talked it down when it got reprinted, and it wasn't great, and I'm pretty low on it again here.
Yeah, me too. There's some value to be had here and there, but a lot of the enter the battlefield effects are minor. I guess there's that white uncommon that we saw, the 6 mana one. That's a pretty good thing to pick up, but you don't really want to be casting this card unless you're getting value by picking up something that has a good effect when it comes in. Yes, it's good when your opponent like goes to kill your thing, you bounce their thing, save your thing, but hard to engineer those situations. So yeah, I'm gonna be fairly low on this one. Give Runaway Together a D.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I'm gonna go all the way down to D minus.
yeah, sounds
like
good.
this.
Ooh, old favorite, back again. Think twice. 1 in a blue for an instant. Draw a card, and it has flashback for 3 mana.
Yeah, so the flashback's nice if you can like loot this or surveil it away, but it's also got some tension with Tolarian Terror because you don't want to
Mm,
exile the instant from your graveyard. This thing's like we saw Deduce, which was just a better version of this, and that card was fine but
solid.
not
Yeah.
exciting. This one's got some synergies with like the Balmor stuff going on. I think it all washes out to be probably pretty similar. Somewhere like a C.
Yeah, I was gonna give it a C minus. I think it's just like a little bit too airy. Like I think you're fine playing it in a spells deck, but I think most times in your spells deck you'd maybe prefer. Well, that's hard to say. I was gonna say you maybe prefer Fleeting Distraction, but they're different cards. Shouldn't really
Yeah,
compare them.
I'll stick with a C, I think.
Okay, yeah. I'll stick with my C minus. Next up, we've got Erudite Wizard. This is 2 in a blue for a 2/3. Whenever you draw your second card each turn, put a 1/1 counter on this creature. Okay, so we've seen 4 mana versions of this. 4 mana 3/3s, not good. So they bumped it down a whole mana, taking off a point of power. Does that bump it into definitely not exciting range, but not embarrassing range? Is it there?
No, I think this thing's still embarrassing.
Yeah, I think so too. Even though we just saw 2 cantrips in the past little while, you can just do better. You don't have to work for your slightly larger creature. D minus.
Yeah.
Yeah, sounds good. All right, and then this is a really nice one. Refute. 1 blue for an instant. Counter target spell. Draw a card, then discard a card.
Yeah, this is a nice upside on cancel. This like I'm very interested in this.
Yeah, me too. It's a little bit better than the variants of this. We've seen that like Surveil one or Scry one, getting the card immediately does sometimes matter. Just like ditching a card that you can't cast or don't want to cast, upgrading it. Yeah, this is a really good variant of cancel.
This is also a nice one to have with Think Twice, like leaving the mana up
Yeah.
and they don't do anything.
Yeah, I think there's just going to be a fairly decent just blue control package you can put together, blue instant control package. This is just a really nice addition to that. I will give Refute a C plus.
Yeah, I wrote that down for myself too. I'm with you.
Okay, cool. I was gonna say maybe it's slightly too high for just the cancel, but yeah, I like it a lot. All right, next up we've got Mocking Sprite. This is 2 in a blue for a 2/1 flyer. Instant and sorceries you cast cost 1 less to cast. So this card was in Wilds of Eldraine. It was quite bad, but that set was really hostile to X1 creatures. I'm not trying to say it's going to be great here, but I think it's going to be a little bit better, just a little bit.
Yeah, and it is nice with flashback. Like you can discount both sides of your Think Twice.
Yep.
And there's some uncommons with flashback too. We're gonna see. Still being an X, like your 3-drop trading down for those 3 cards, right?
Mhm.
Like, the Burst Lightning, the Stab, and the Fanatical Firebrand isn't
Mhm.
going to be great. I think I'm going to give Sprite like a D plus.
Yep. That's exactly what I was going to give it to. It's going to be a okay playable in your decks that specifically care about spells. Not even a card you want in like your flying deck because it has flying, but it's not a good rate on it. Big Fin Bouncer. So this is the 3 and a blue for a 3/2. When it enters, return target creature and opponent controls to its owner's hand.
Yeah. Nice little mana war.
Yeah, I like this. Like 3 mana. We just saw a 3 mana war in Dustmourne, and that card was one of the top uncommons. And you know, adding a whole mana on might seem like a pretty big nerf, but this effect is still good at 4 mana. Very, very happy. Just like reset their 3, kill a token. Yeah, I think it's just a quality blue common.
Yeah, it does still die, like, trades down with 1 mana removal spells. So 2 toughness on a 4-drop is kind of rough. But I'm still going to give it, like, a C+.
Yep, exactly what I was going to give it to. C+ for Big Fin Bouncer. Next up, we've got Uncharted Voyage. So this is a 4 mana instant, 3 and a blue. Target creature's owner puts it on their choice of the top or bottom of their library. And then you surveil 1.
Yeah, so only hits creatures, unlike the Vanishing whatever we just saw from Duskmourn.
Yeah, Vanish from sight.
But still, like, almost functionally the same. And that card was pretty good.
Yeah.
I think I'm going to give this another C+.
Yep, me too. These cards are always a bit underrated. You often don't have to take them very highly because they kind of come around the table. But yeah, C+ for Uncharted Voyage, I agree. Lightshell Duo up next. This is 4 mana, 3 and a blue for a 3/4 prowess. When it enters, you surveil 2. This was a card that in Bloomburrow that slowly crept up for me as the set went on. I kind of was, like, I don't really want to play that card early on, but more and more I played, the more I liked it. And the themes that it was good in, like a Threshold deck and a Spells deck, are both here again. So, yeah, I think you're going to play this 4-drop some amount of the time in decks that care about those things.
Even in, like, blue-green, like, this punches and fights pretty well.
Yeah, that's a good point. Yeah.
So I think, like, I'm going to give it a C.
I was going to go C-, but yeah, I think just like a little bit better than it might seem if you haven't played with it.
Yeah, I like Lightshell Duo.
Yeah. Next up, we've got Ice Wind Elemental. It's a 4 and a blue, 3/4 flyer. When it enters, you draw a card, and then you discard a card. Meh. Yeah, meh. Little bit understated. The ability, yeah, fine. Looting generally, I mean, you might be super flooded and be like, yeah, fine, I pitch a land, but looting generally better on your cheaper cards than your expensive cards.
Is this better than a D?
I was gonna give it like a D+, but that's all I'll give it. That's all I'll budge.
Okay, I'll give it a D.
Yeah, sounds good to me. All right, here we go. My boy, Tolarian Terror. 7 mana, 6 and a blue for a 5/5 Serpent. It costs 1 less for each instant or sorcery in your graveyard, and it has Ward too.
So we can't protect it with Shore Up this time.
No, can't do that.
Still a good amount of support for this. Like, pretty similar to DMU in like blue-red. This was more of just like a blue card in Dominaria. I think it's more of like a blue-red or blue-black only card here. Like, you're not going to play it in blue-white or blue-green. But it's still going to be one of your stronger commons in those decks. And, like, it's washes out. I don't know if I'm going to go higher than C+ on it, although I do think it was better than that in DMU.
Yeah, no, I was going to give it a C+ too. As much as I like the card, I think that it needs, a good amount of support. You have to have, I would say, somewhere in the neighborhood of, like, 10 spells to really be happy about it. Like, if this costs 5 mana, it's okay. You really want it to cost, like, 3 or 4 as the game goes on. So, yeah, good card. I like it a lot. C+.
Yeah.
Sounds good. All right, now on to the uncommons. All right, so moving on to the uncommons for blue. An offer you can't refuse. Single blue mana for an instant. Counter target non-creature spell. Its controller creates 2 treasure tokens. F. Just straight F.
Alex, you can't refuse it.
I'm going to. I am going to refuse this.
Wow.
I'm sorry, Mark.
I will join you on the F then.
Yeah. Next up, we have, this is one of my all-time favorite cards. Spectral Sailor. Single blue mana for a 1/1 flash flyer. And it's got the 4 mana ability, 3 and a blue, to draw a card. Yeah, really,
Yeah.
really nice little card. This is one you also, I think, didn't play with because this is M20.
No, although it did, like, for some time, this was in people's cubes at
Oh,
one
that's true.
point,
Yeah,
too.
yeah. Which, I mean, kind of speaks to the power level of the card to some degree, right?
Yeah, yeah, really, really, like, threatening ability there to just take over the game. So, this is maybe, like, just straight up B?
Yeah, I was just going to give it a B too. We've got the flying theme going on. And, like, the flash kind of seems, kind of whatever. But changing combat, just being able to, like, trade with the next one or have just one more trump blocker on a key turn, that matters a lot too. So, yeah, I like B for Spectral Sailor. Next up, we've got Mischievous Mystic. This is 1 and a blue for a 2/1. It's got flying. Whenever you draw your second card each turn, create a 1/1 blue fairy creature token with flying. I actually didn't even see until I read this card right now that this had flying, and I was already pretty high on it.
Oh, yeah, this card's, like, it's not that easy to trigger, but it's really good.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, we saw a few cantrips. Think twice. There's, a few creatures that'll draw you a card.
Yeah, the cat.
Yeah, the cat. Yeah, card strong. Good rate, good ability. You want to give this a B?
This might
plus?
even be a B plus.
Yeah, I can see it. Yeah, it's a must kill. Like you just have to kill this if you see it. Okay, yeah, I'll join you at B plus. Looks really good.
Okay.
Next up, we've got Brineborn Cutthroat. This is 1 and a blue for a 2/1 flash. Whenever you cast a spell during an opponent's turn, put a +1/+1 counter on this creature. And that's not once per turn. That's just like, you can load up on this thing if you got a lot of instants.
Yeah, and we just saw, Spectral Sailor having flash. There's another upside for it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, this card was also pretty good. And I believe same set. I think it was also an M20. Yeah, like just trading with their 2 if you need to, or if not, you have a good hand that sets this up and grows a bunch. Yeah, it's just a pretty good card. Not as good as some of the uncommons we've seen in blue so far, but I would give Brineborn Cutthroat a C plus.
C plus.
Yep.
Okay. I wrote down B minus. I don't know if that's too hot myself, but I'll stay there for now.
Yeah, sounds good. Next up, we've got an upshift here, which I think was well deserved at this point. It was always really good at the common slot. Essence Scatter, 1 and a blue, instant counter target creature spell.
Yeah, no complaints about having this at uncommon. Like we see a lot of uncommons these days. You're still gonna be able to pick up one of these for most of your blue decks, I imagine, and you're gonna play it every time. So that's washes out to about a C plus.
Yep, I would say so too. And a lot of the Dominator United spells friends that are joining the fray here, kind of funny. Next up, we have Cephalid Ink Mage. This is 2 and a blue for a 2/2. When it enters, you surveil 3. Threshold. This creature can't be blocked as long as there are 7 or more cards in your graveyard. So you've got a 3 mana 2/2. Not good. Surveil 3 on entry, though, that's seeing a lot of cards, and that gets you, if you just dump them if you want to, like that gets you quite a bit of the way to Threshold. But the payoff's not all that exciting on this one.
I kind of like this thing.
For the Surveil 3, like that's the redeeming quality here for me.
Yeah, and like it does become a must answer.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I guess. And you're just like not that sad to trade it off. Like you're sad-ish to trade down if you have to trade with their 2. But it's
like
also
if you can surveil something with flashback into your graveyard. There's three is a lot of cards to see.
Okay. I'll we haven't really done this to each other this set review, but I'll pull the old. Before I say anything, what's your grade on this one, Mark?
I am gonna give this, assuming that it gets played mostly in blue-black, I'm gonna give it a C.
Okay. Yeah, that sounds about right to me too. I think giving it the qualifier of like in a blue-black deck that really cares about filling its grave, I'll buy that. But even still, that's not anything to write home about. So I agree. C in a blue-black deck, so put me down for a synergy grade, I would say.
Okay.
All right, next up, really nice one here. Fey Bloom Trick. This is 2 and a blue for an instant. Create 2 1/1 blue fairy creature tokens with flying. When you do, tap target creature and opponent controls. Hell yeah.
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 2 flyers for the blue-white deck. Like, if these can be 2/2s with that uncommon,
Yeah.
you're gonna kill people pretty quickly with this.
Yeah, type of thing, gain a little bit of life, or if they, let's just say they have a flyer, they're not a dedicated flyer deck. You are. They have one largish flyer holding your things back. Yeah, tap it down, get it for a bunch of damage. Yeah, card's very very good. I give Fey Bloom Trick a B.
B? I was gonna go B minus.
Okay, yeah, sounds good to me too. Next up, we've got Inspiration from Beyond. This is 2 and a blue for a sorcery. Mill 3 cards, then return an instant or sorcery card from your graveyard to your hand. It's got flashback for 5 blue. Interesting card.
Tough for
Yeah.
me to grade.
This is, I think, one of the tougher ones we've seen so far in a set with a lot of pretty simple cards.
Yeah.
So
I could see this thing being bad or good or anywhere in between.
yeah, so you gotta be putting this in your deck with something in mind, right? You're like, I am super late game. I've got a few really good spells to get back. Maybe you are pretty self-mill / surveil heavy. Milling 3 helps you get there. If your deck is, I'd say 10, 11 spells, sometimes you could just cast this and see if you hit something off of it. Although most times if you think you should play this card, you won't need to just blindly cast it. Yeah, I think it's like if you know what you're doing with this card, it's probably pretty powerful, but you really have to be sure, like, yes, I am putting this card in my deck. I'm a hard to control deck or a just like turbo threshold deck. And I have some really good spells to get back. It's kind of a tough ask though.
Yeah, like getting back like an Eaten Alive or something and like making up for the tempo. There's some appealing things to this for me. And like you can also mill this. Flashback's pretty expensive though, I guess.
Yeah, you bring up a pretty good point where I multiple times said you have some really good spells to get back. I think really though you want good cheap spells to get back, like Eaten Alive, which is a black exile sorcery that we're going to see in a few minutes here. So has to be a synergy grade. I don't think you can get away with anything but that. And I think even there it's going to be solid, like synergy C+, I would say.
Yeah, I wrote a build around C+ for
Okay.
me.
Yeah. Fair enough. Yeah, I think that one thing we haven't really touched on. I don't think there's a shuffle things back into your library card in this set, right? No Sam Black Invitational this time around. I believe.
I don't think so.
Yeah. Okay. Just something to point out. Something good to know. All right. Next up, we've got Rune Sealed Wall. This is 2 and a blue for an 0/6. Really big, but it's an artifact creature with Defender, and you can tap it to surveil 1. So
I like this thing.
Yeah, I like this thing too. We were saying like, okay, pretty good in the other wallish creatures we've seen. Good against the big, dumb 4-power matter creatures. Not so good against the go wide stuff, admittedly. But yeah, surveilling 1 each turn is generally pretty good.
Yeah, that's really good. Like you can just bin stuff early on for Threshold or for Tolarian Terrors, and then late game this is going to be like it'll feel like a must kill in the late game.
Yeah, absolutely. You want to give this a kind of going back and forth between C and C+. I'm going to give it a C though. I think I actually think
for myself as well.
Yeah, I can see for you too. I actually think being an artifact creature is like a decent knock against it in this set.
Cathar Commando, I guess.
Yeah, Cathar Commando, a few other things. Imprison in the Moon. Blues has gotten just the rogues gallery of not good blue enchantment removal spells here. Imprison in the Moon is 2 and a blue for an enchantment. Enchant creature, land, or planeswalker. The enchanted permanent is colorless. Is a colorless land with tap, add colorless, and it loses all other card types and abilities. Really, really bad to cast early. Just you don't want to ramp your opponent early, and sure it answers anything late, but has all the general problems with these kind of aura-based removal spells. Any card that I can't cast happily before turn 6, I'm not very happy with. So I'm just gonna give this one an F, honestly.
I wrote down D-. I'm not quite as brave, but yeah.
Yeah, sounds good. Next up, we've got... Ooh, how do you say this one? Clinquaint Mage? I'm going to go with Clinquaint Mage. This is 3 and a blue for a 1/1. It's got flying. Whenever you draw a card, put a +1/+1 counter on this creature. Okay, so normally, 4 mana, 1/1. Bad. Very, very bad. And I don't think that changes with this card too much. But I will note that this isn't a once per turn thing. This thing can get very, very big very, very quickly. There was a card that was exactly this in Modern Horizons 1, except it was a 1/2. And that card was not one of the better cards in the set, but playable in like the heavy blue card draw decks. So I just want to call this out as I think a lot of these cards that are just like really understated 4-drops that need some work to be good are I would just give them an F. This one I think deserves like something more in the D range.
Well, I'm giving this an F.
Yeah, just straight up. Okay.
It's so small.
I probably used more words than I needed to give it a D. I just wanted to call it out as I think it's a D.
Okay.
Yeah. Next up, we've got, a Gate Crash reprint. Aetherize. 3 and a blue for an instant. Return all attacking creatures to their owner's hand. Gate Crash expert Mark over here. What say you about Aetherize?
This card might have somewhat decent stats for all players. Like sometimes we talk up cards that are like, oh, this card's gonna have bad stats, but if you find the right spot for it, it could be good. It's kind of like the opposite, where playing at the Gate Crash PT, like if your opponent leaves up 4 mana, it's really not that hard to play around this.
Yeah, for sure. It does get a little bit better. Well, not so much. I was gonna say it gets a little bit better in a set that's like fairly multi-creature token heavy, but then you just bounce other things and they cast them again and they make a token. Like, there's not a lot of pure just like I am a sorcery making tokens in this set. Few of them.
Yeah, like they can just not attack, but they can also attack with like just a couple. Yeah, like decide if you want to use this as a 4 mana unsummon, and like otherwise you're taking damage.
Yeah, this is a card that it's gonna be funny on 17 lands. I think like the first 3 or 4 days of the set, it's gonna have pretty, maybe okay stats, but really dip off after. You only have to get gotten by this once. It's like Settle the Wreckage, right? You get gotten by Settle the Wreckage once, and you think about it every single time you go to attack, even in formats that don't have Settle the Wreckage in the format. That's what's gonna happen with Aetherize, I imagine.
Yeah, like there are a lot of overruns on the set we talked about, and this is like a hard counter for those, basically. So yeah, I'm gonna give Aetherize, I think, like a D plus.
Yeah, I was gonna say that too. Like it's also not, we were kind of talking it down, but it's also not like terrible or anything. It's a castable, playable card. So yeah, I'll join it at D plus. Micromancer, back again. 4 mana, 3 and a blue for a 3/3. When it enters, you may search your library for an instant or sorcery card with mana value 1. Reveal it, put it into your hand, and then shuffle. So we've seen a few in blue already. Or I guess just one at common. The Fleeting Distraction. We've got Eaten Alive in black. Again, the sacrifice a thing to exile target creature. So that's a 1-drop you can get. We've got, we're jumping ahead here, so apologies for those who haven't seen the full set. But in red, there's Burst Lightning, which is a shock variant. So there's a good handful of things to get in quite a few colors.
And Stab.
Like Stab, of course. Yeah, of course. The -2/-2 for 1 mana.
Yeah, less targets than there was in DMU, though, for sure.
Right. Yeah, and not getting, like, we just named a bunch of removal spells and a cantrip. And I think part of the versatility of Micromancer was like just the array of types of spells you could get in Dominaria United, where you get like Urborg Repossession to buy things back, or Shore Up if your board position was great and you just wanted to protect it. Here you're going to get a good mix of spells, but a lot of them kind of do the same thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So this probably needs a synergy grade as well, because like you need what, two targets for this, and you're happy to play it?
Yeah, I think so. Like 3 to be really comfortable. The nightmare situation, of course, is just you draw both of them before you can cast your Micromancer, and you've played a Hill Giant, and that's not very good. So I think it's playable on 2, but I would aim for 3.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Even if your third's like, you don't really want to be getting like giant growths with this, but it's better than
Yeah, it is better than nothing. So in that like synergy or kind of build around, you camp, whatever you want to grade it. I think it gets like a B-.
Yeah, I like that.
Great. Next up, we've got Arcane Epiphany. This is 3 blue for an instant. Draw 3 cards, and it costs 1 less to cast if you control a wizard.
Yeah, it's okay.
Yeah, I generally try to read out you'll hear me say creature types on certain cards and not call them out on others. Usually I do that when it's a relevant creature type. I haven't done a good job of calling out wizards so far, so apologies on that. But there is a handful of them, I will say.
Yeah, I think all the things that benefit off of you drawing your second card per turn are wizards.
Those are wizards.
And some of those are better than others, as we've seen.
Mm-hmm.
But if you can get this to cost 4, it's pretty good. 5 mana, it's okay.
Yeah, five mana is like playable. Again, another card that kind of buffs that blue all instant control package. Yeah, I think this is fine. I would give Arcane Epiphany like a C minus.
I wrote C, so pretty similar. Yeah.
Okay, fair enough. And then we've got Skyship Buccaneer up next. 3 blue for a 4/3 flyer. And if you attacked this turn, which of course is what raid is. Oh wait, did I even say raid? I don't know if I said raid, but it has raid. When this creature enters, if you attacked this turn, draw a card, just straight up.
Yeah, this I'm somewhat interested in. I think it'll be there's enough flyers in blue. I think you'll be able to get the attack in, and then you draw a card, and this card's pretty good.
Yeah, this card's quite good. It definitely is not. I was just talking about the blue control package. Definitely a very different card, but yeah, blue white is gonna like it. Blue green, any deck where you can see yourself playing creatures on turns 1 to 4 that are going to be attacking. Want to give it a C plus?
Yeah, I like that for this.
Yeah, sounds good. All right, and then our last blue uncommon here is Grappling.
More.
Oh, sorry, two more blue uncommons here. Grappling Kraken. 4 blue for a 5/6 landfall. When a land enters, tap target creature an opponent controls and put a stun counter on it.
I'm pretty low on this.
Yeah, me too. There was a card that was pretty similar to this. I feel maybe. When was this? And maybe it was a while ago. But in any case, yeah, I'm also fairly low on it. It has the issue of being a 6-drop with landfall, which is always a bit dicey when you don't have that many lands in hand, and it makes your lands okay draws. Nothing wrong with that, but it's just I think nothing special.
Yeah, and it's not even that big it's a blue creature, so we can't expect it to be too huge.
Yeah.
5/6 for 6 mana is not a good rate.
No.
Green has a 12/8 for 6 mana?
That's so much bigger than this one. Yeah. All right, what do you want to give it?
I'm going to give this a D.
Yeah, I was going to go D+. I think it's slightly better than that, but, not too excited about it. And then, yeah, our last blue uncommon here, Self-Reflection. This is 4 blue for a sorcery. Create a token that's a copy of target creature you control, but it's got flashback for 3 and a blue. Really pricey on the front side.
Yeah, you really want to be looting this or surveilling it away, but there are ways to do that in this set.
Mm-hmm.
More so, this was also in LCI, right? And
Yep.
There were some huge things like some land cyclers to copy in that set that made it a little bit interesting. But I think this card has some potential. I think I'm going to give this a D+.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say too. And I'll echo exactly what you just said. It's going to be a little bit better, but not by a ton. All right, cool. Well, that's blue. Any closing thoughts on blue?
Blue looks nice. A lot of C pluses, but it's doesn't really do anything unique. The worry, we talked about this a little in Bloomborough, and Bloomborough ended up being better than expected. But once you get to your 20th or 30th draft of the set, I'm not really sure what you're gonna do that's gonna keep it spicy and keep things interesting.
Yeah, as far as just weird kind of build arounds or deep dives on certain archetypes. For what it's worth, sets are only going to be around these days, in 2025 forward for 2 months with 6 sets a year. So maybe a little bit less of an issue than it used to be. But yeah, I definitely agree with that.
Yeah, blue's just it's basically just drawing cards and countering things.
Yeah, it has a removal issue, which blue tends to, but even more so in this set because the few removal spells it does get are quite bad. So you're going to want to pair your blue with your black or red spells, I think. Moving on now to black. Back to some comments here. We've got the card we've been talking about a lot, Stab. Single black mana for an instant. Target creature gets -2/-2 until end of turn.
Yeah, very efficient. Like this thing, the fact that it can answer all the way up to even like some 4 mana creatures
Mm-hmm.
it deals with. There's even if it doesn't deal with the thing cleanly, it can often win a combat giving -2/-2. Like this could be one of the best disfigure sets ever, I think.
Yeah, no, absolutely. There's a lot of 3, 4 toughness creatures. Like you mentioned it goes up to 4, but it's not even like, oh, there's like 1 or 2 things. Like there's quite a few things that this 4 mana and 3 mana things that this kills. So
Yeah,
yeah,
I want to give this at least a B minus. It might even get into the B territory.
yeah. I was just gonna give it a B. I think the card's gonna be really good.
Okay.
Yeah, kills a lot of the signposts and commons too, for what it's worth. Just like some of the better,
Yeah.
higher picks. Ruby, the 2/2 unicorn thing. So yeah, I like B for stab. Next up, another card I like a lot. Infestation Sage. This is a single black mana for a 1/1. When it dies, you create a 1/1 black and green insect creature token with flying, and it's also an elf. So types, very efficient. This is Doomed Traveler, but in black, and that card was really, really good.
Yeah, and there's sacrifice synergies going on here, and
Yeah, we kind of just started with 2 bangers here, I think, in black. I don't think this quite gets to the range of stab, but I'd give Infestation Sage a oof. I don't know if it's a hot take to say a B minus, but I'm gonna start there.
I'm gonna go C plus.
Okay.
I'm not quite as high.
Yeah, fair enough. Next up, we've got another one we've been calling out: Eaten Alive, single black mana for a sorcery. Exile a target creature or a planeswalker, but as an additional cost to cast the spell, you either sack a creature or pay 3 and a black. So it costs 3 black straight up. So we've seen this in Innistrad Midnight Hunt, and that card there had zombies, decay zombies, as a bit of a prop up to it. But there's a good amount of things to sacrifice in black, as we'll see. It's a 1 mana spell. Go get off Micromancer, like we mentioned.
Yeah, I'm still not gonna just play all of these happily. Like,
Mm-hmm.
I don't like I liked Final Vengeance, but typically don't like these Bone Splinter type of effects too much.
Mm-hmm.
I think I'm gonna give this a C for Eaten Alive.
I was gonna give it a C plus, but I think we're pretty close there. Next up, we've got Sanguine Siphoner, 1 in a black for a 1/3. When it attacks, each opponent loses 1 life, and you gain 1 life. So kind of like the Lizard from Bloomborough, which was okay. I think this card is kind of a filler 2-drop.
Yeah, I'm not very high on this.
Yeah, like a C
Like you
minus.
only played that card because it was a lizard.
Right, because you
Basically.
cared about dealing your opponent a damage to trigger your things.
Well, and because it, discounted your scales fails and
Yep.
stuff like that.
Could even be like a D
This
plus,
does
honestly.
trigger the life gain synergy, but
Right.
it's on attacks only, and I think this thing's just bad.
So you want to give it a D?
I was gonna give it a D. Yeah.
Okay, I'll give it the D plus. Just a
Okay.
little bump there. Pilfer, now a common. 1 in a black for a sorcery. Target opponent reveals their hand. Take a non-land from it. And they discard that card.
Yeah, not very exciting. This was in Strixhaven, was it?
This was, I think, Dominaria United.
Oh, okay, okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think you're right about that. Yeah, I don't remember playing this very much.
No, I do remember some pretty good players talking it up. That, of course, could be, I think it was Jason actually was talking me up on it. Could be in higher level pods where, you don't come across as many good 2s. But I also don't think we should start very high on it. It's playable. It's not like an F or anything, but I would give Pilfer a D plus.
Okay, I'll go D again because if
Okay.
it was Dominaria, like that set was very slow.
Right. Yeah. Yeah, that's fair. You probably want to be playing like an attacking blocking 2-drop or a removal spell in 2 in this set. Yeah, I'll join you actually. D for Pilfer.
Okay.
Macabre Waltz. This is a throwback. 1 in a black for a sorcery. Return up to 2 target creatures from your graveyard to your hand, and then you discard a card. So not quite card advantage, getting back 2 things, but like buy back something, upgrade a land. Yeah, it's like a okay version of this effect.
Yeah, it's kind of like we have the red, discard a card, draw 2,
Mhm.
and this is kind of like the reverse of that.
Right. Yeah, that's a good way to put it.
But I can see spots where you're happy to play the first one of these.
Yeah, me too. You want to be creature heavy. You want to be, maybe filling up your graveyard. But we've had some variants of this. Like there was the one in Marchant Machines that like milled 3 and you bought 2 things back. It was sorcery, or sorry, an instant. Like a lot of knobs tweaked on that one in the right way. And I think this one, don't look at it as that kind of card. So I'd give Macabre Waltz like a D+. You're gonna play it sometimes. Yep. Burglar Rat. 1 in a black for a 1/1. It's a rat, and when it enters, each opponent discards a card. Yeah, always pretty solid, these kind of cards.
I'm pretty high on this one for this set.
Great to sack.
Just not being a 2/2, it doesn't seem like that big of a deal in this set. There's a lot of ways to make use of the bodies, and just like I think this is what you want to do on 2 in a lot of black decks.
Yeah, quite a few X1s in this format too. So just nice, lines up nice with some of the other 2-drops. Yeah, I think you're basically always going to play this card in your black decks. I think it's going to be a reasonably high pick, like a 2-drop you're happy to play. Like that makes it a C+.
Yep, I'm with you.
Nice. Next up is Fake Your Own Death. 1 in a black for an instant. Until end of turn, target creature gets +2/+0 and gains. When this creature dies, return to the battlefield tapped under its owner's control, and you make a treasure token.
Yeah, I think I like this one. So this is, another reprint. We've seen this card be varying levels of good, but I think it's pretty good here. There's a lot of little trinkety creatures that you want to like rebuy or ETB, or there's nothing like too huge that's going to stonewall this either. I think this is going to be another solid role player.
Yeah, I do too. Like I said, lots of enter the battlefield effects, which is kind of what you want to pair this with. So yeah, I think it's a pretty good trick. If you want to call it a trick, I'd give it a C.
I'm going to go C-.
Okay, yeah, sounds good. Next up is Hungry Ghoul. Interesting card here. 1 in a black for a 2/2. It's a zombie, and you can pay a single mana to sacrifice another creature, single colorless mana. Put a +1/+1 counter on this creature. So we've got a sacrifice outlet that's not 1 per turn. It costs mana, but can be pretty scary. Like this thing in the mid game, maybe slightly unimpressive, but as the game goes on, like your opponent really has to worry about this. They have to keep jumping it at some point.
Yeah, this is what I talked about, having like we have the Infestation Sage and the Burglar Rat already. There's a lot of fodder.
Yeah.
And that makes this card pretty scary. It like attacks pretty well for raid. It triggers Morbid. It kind of does everything.
Yeah, I think you're gonna be pretty happy with this in your 2-drop slot too. Like I think there's gonna be some decks where it's just not very good. Like you can look at your deck and you're like, yeah, there's not too much you want to sacrifice in here. But I think most black decks won't be that. I think most black decks are gonna have some amount of things, some number of things you're pretty happy with.
It's also really nice with involuntary employment, like the active treason.
Yes, that is a really good point. As we go through black here, keep your eye out for anything that says sacrifice a creature, because there is an active treason at common this time around. So yeah.
Yeah, but Eaten Alive, I guess, is another call out for that.
Yep.
It's in the black. Yeah.
Do you think this is a C or a C+? I think that's the 2 grades I would maybe give it.
I'm gonna go as high as C+ on
okay.
this.
Yeah, I was leaning that direction too. I think it's just got enough play to it. Next up, we've got Marauding Blight Priest. This is 2 in a black for a 3/2. Whenever you gain life, each opponent loses 1 life. So we had this in Zendikar Rising, and it was a okay card, like kind of a filler plus for your black-white life gain decks. I imagine it's going to play out fairly similar, maybe even a little bit worse. Just the kind of Soul Sister card was a 2-mana card in that set. Oh no, sorry, it was a 3-mana card as well. So never mind. Scratch what I just said. But yeah, it's fine for those decks. You have to be exactly life gain, and it's like a C there.
It is part of a 2-card combo in this set, right? That just kills the opponent.
Oh, I haven't heard about this. Please enlighten me.
There's a mythic. Right?
Okay.
There's 3 black for a 5/5 flying with maybe Death Touch.
Yep.
Mythic, and it's whenever your opponent loses life, you gain that much life.
Oh, interesting. Yeah, it's the old Sanguine Bond Exquisite Blood combo. Yeah, that's pretty cool. Okay, I mean, definitely matters for that. Like that, you can just kill your opponent on turn 5.
It's a mythic, so it's not going to come up very often.
For sure. Just good to call out though. Yeah, I'm gonna just stamp it as a synergy C and move on. But yeah, I'm glad you brought that up. That's really important.
Okay, yeah, I'll join you. I wrote C-, but synergy C sounds better.
Gutless Plunderer. This is 2 in a black for a Death Touch 2/2. It's got Raid. When it enters, if you attack this turn, look at the top 3 cards of your library. You may put one of those cards back on top of your library, put the rest into your graveyard. And just, I had to read this a time or two just to like kind of parse what's happening here. But you can just choose to put all 3 in the graveyard. If you don't like any of them, you don't have to keep something on top. But if you do like one of them, you can keep one on top. It is an option.
Not really like a reward, though.
Yeah, for like, here's my raid trigger. Yeah, no, totally. And 2/2 Death Touch for 3 is not a good raid at all.
Right. It's more of like a defensive body, which, like, if you're trying to attack and raid, this is. I don't really like this because it doesn't seem like it's helping you do what you want to do.
Yeah, I agree. Like, the raid part is awkward in like a blue-black deck where the mill is good. And the, like, kind of okay attacker, like, the problem with this is like, oh, my opponent doesn't want to block it. Okay, they take 2 from your 3-drop. Like, that just, the numbers don't add up there. Like, your clock is not exactly a blistering fast clock for your aggro deck. So, yeah, I think this card's actually fairly bad.
Yeah, I wrote D for myself.
Yeah, I'll join you there. D for Gutless Plunderer. Okay. Next up, we've got something that dies to the 1-mana spells. We've got Soul Shackled Zombie, a 4-mana card here. 3 and a black for a 4/2. When it enters, exile up to 2 target cards from a single graveyard. If at least 1 creature card was exiled this way, each opponent loses 2 life and you gain 2 life.
Yeah, like Drain 2 is powerful.
It is.
Yeah, the body is weird on this.
The body is weird. Yeah, we had the Diregraph Scavenger, I think it was called. From
2/3 Death Touch.
Yeah, 2/3 Death Touch version of this, and that card was pretty good from Crimson Vow. But 2/3 Death Touch is, I think, quite a bit better than 4/2 vanilla.
And it only needed to hit 1 card. Like this needs to have. Oh, it's up
No,
to 2.
no, up to
Okay.
yeah.
Up to 2. Okay.
Yeah, it's a little bit better. Again, another random just like graveyard hate for the Threshold deck. Yeah, I don't hate this card, but I don't like it very much either. I think I would give Soul Shackled Zombie like a D+.
Yeah, I'm with you there.
Yeah, great. Next up is a card I like a lot. Bake into a Pie. 2 black for an instant. Destroy target creature. Make a food token.
Super efficient. The food does trigger life gain synergies, although it's not going to be that relevant all the time. But anytime it's, add a rectangle to a removal spell, it's going to be pretty good.
Yeah, exactly. I would put it exactly like that. I'd give Bake into a Pie a B-.
Yeah, that's what I wrote too.
Great. Crypt Feaster is up next. 3 and a black for a 4/3 menace. But if you have Threshold, it gets +2/+0. It's a 5/4 menace. Ooh.
Yeah, not the reward. Like again, it's kind of like Gutless Plunder. Your reward for it's almost like the reverse. Like you're doing a slow thing with Threshold, and then you get an aggressive card.
Mm-hmm.
The other one, you're doing an aggressive thing with Raid, and then you get like a slow 2/2 Death Touch.
Yeah, actually,
I almost rather flip the stat lines on those 2 creatures.
Sorry, I didn't read the card fully. Actually, it's even worse than I read it because it only gets that +2 on attacks when you have Threshold. Yeah.
Yeah. The tax is a 5/4 menace, but blocks still is a 3/4. I think this card is like a D-.
Yeah, D-. I don't think this card is very good at all. Yeah. He's just like, mill when it enters the battlefield or something. But maybe that's too many words for this set. Vampire Soulcaller up next. 5 mana, 4 and a black for a 3/2 flyer. It can't block, but when it enters, return target creature card from your graveyard to your hand. So sort of like a Gravedigger that only really goes in aggressive decks.
Right, which is not really what the aggressive decks typically need.
Yeah. Yeah, I think when your opponent plays this, you're not going to be that sad. Like, I can imagine, you traded a little bit. Like, your opponent comes out to a fastish start. You trade a little bit. They play this, and you're like, well, thank goodness they played a 5-drop with 3 power. Yeah,
they put a 5-drop that dies to my first lightning.
Yeah, exactly. Like, they drew a card, but I can deal with that. Like, that's not the part of the game I'm worried about here. I can outcard them. So, yeah, I don't think this card is very good. I would give it a D+.
Yeah, okay. That's what I was going to do as well.
Nice. All right, moving on to black uncommons here. Zipping along. Diregraph Ghoul. Single black mana for a 2/2. Enters tapped.
Yeah, I kind of feel the same way as I did with Savannah Lions. Like, this is maybe tiny bit better, but I think still watches out to about like a C-.
Yeah, I would say that same thing too. C- for Diregraph Ghoul. Next up is Exsanguinate. X black for a sorcery. Each opponent loses X life, and you gain life equal to the life lost this way. I didn't play this Mirrodin block extensively. Was this at all playable, or is this just like a you never kind of?
It's decent if you're playing two-headed giant.
Sure is. It sure is.
Aside
Otherwise,
from that, no, not really.
okay,
It was not. It was not good.
okay. Just give it an F then.
Yeah, I'm giving this an F.
Okay, sounds good. Reassembling skeleton, not resembling skeleton like it is often misread as. This is 1 and a black for a 1/1. Pay 1 and a black. Return this card from your graveyard back to the battlefield tapped. So infinite sack fodder for 2 mana.
And it's and you can mill it too, like
Yeah.
or surveil it.
Mill
I
it.
kind of like this.
Infinite chump blocker.
You can usually find something to do with a 1/1.
Yeah, it's like never the most impressive thing, but when you're staring it down, you're like, yeah, that's kind of annoying. Okay, I guess they attack and they jump and yeah, they buy it back and yeah, it's something when you put in your deck, you generally want cards that play well with it. You know, all the stuff we just mentioned, but it's not that hard to find something, and then it washes out to about a C, I would say.
Yeah, I like C for reassembling skeleton.
Nice. Vampire Gourmand. This is 1 and a black for a 2/2. When it attacks, you can sacrifice another creature. If you do, draw a card, and this creature can't be blocked this turn.
I want to. What do you want to give this one? Here's one we've been kind of flying through these, but I want to hear your thoughts on this.
Yeah, this is not a reprint. This is a new card. Kind of interesting. We haven't really seen too many cards like this before. Think it's pretty deck dependent. Is what I'll say. Like, I don't think it's just a premium uncommon. You take this, you put it in any deck. I think that you could be fine with it there, but it's really only going to excel if you've got like a lot of sack fodder. Like the more of those 1/1s dying to a flyer you have, the more I'm happy with this card. Like that's a really good curve. Even maybe even like just cashing in like a 1/1 from like in a black-white deck from the Prideful Parent or whatever it's called, the 3 mana 2/2 make a 1/1. I don't think it's terribly hard to make this card work, but I also think when you don't make it work, it's pretty bad.
What kind of grade would you give this?
Yeah, I would give this a Synergy C+.
Okay. See, I am much higher on this card.
Oh, okay. This might be our first big. I don't even want to say disagreement, but the first Mark talks me up on something. So yeah, let me have it.
Yeah. So like, obviously, just a 2/2 for 2 on blocks isn't going to be great, but in the black decks, like we've seen at common, Infestation Sage is of course insane with this. Burglar Rat is really good with this. The Reassembling Skeleton we just saw is really good with this. And this is also, it's a free like 0 mana way to guarantee trigger all of your Raid and Morbid stuff.
Raid and Morbid, yeah, okay, it's coming together. I agree.
And it can just be like, oh, you're at 6, like okay, you're dead in like 3 turns.
Yeah, you sold me. It didn't take much, but you sold me. So what's the mark grade on this one then?
I was gonna give it a B.
B, eh? Wow. So do you think just like in any black deck, it's gonna be like good enough? Most of them, anyways.
Yeah, like, and also like not to mention involuntary employment, like it's just bananas with that.
Yeah, no, you're right. Yeah. There's definitely enough cards that play well with that. Huh? Do I want to join you at a B? I'll give it just to be a little bit different. I'll give it a B minus. But yeah, you definitely sold beyond the card being better than I thought for sure.
Okay.
Yeah. Next up is Vengeful Blood Witch. This is another pretty good one. 1 and a black for a 1/1. When this creature or another creature you control dies, target opponent loses 1 life and you gain 1 life. So kind of a Blood Artisty effect. Nobody cares about your stuff. And interesting that they did say target. I'm surprised to reduce clicks they didn't just say each.
That's a good point. You're right, because Arena is going to make this a little bit more annoying. We have seen versions like this before, though, right? There was like Zulaport Cutthroat.
Yep, Zulaport Cutthroat. There was the one from War of the Spark, which was 2-color and actually wasn't very supported. But I think in this set, this kind of effect's pretty supported.
Yeah, no, I mean like the 1/1 for 2 that only triggers on your stuff instead of the 0/1 that triggers off of everything.
Right. Yeah.
And it was still pretty good.
Yeah,
and,
still pretty good.
There, you can see the package here. Like I kind of like what they've done with black for the last couple sets, where they've given it an identity. So instead of just being like, I'm a bunch of removal spells, like there's stuff going on here that you want to build together.
Yeah, removal spells and bad creatures. This has been Black's identity for quite a while, but yeah, no, I totally agree with that. Um, yeah, so this one you do have to have, I think, a little bit more of a sacrificey bend to it. Like it, of course, triggers in combat, but I think you do want like a sack outlet, a something something to really make this tick. It's not going to be terrible if you don't, but to really max on it, you're looking to go a bit deeper.
I'm not going to give this a synergy grade. I still think it's pretty good.
Yeah, no, me too. I wasn't going to either. I was just going to give it a synergy C plus.
Synergy C plus.
Yep. Oh, sorry, not synergy, just a C plus.
Just a C plus.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm going to give it a B minus.
Okay.
I think there's enough here going on that it's pretty easy to do.
Yeah, totally. Fair enough. Okay, here's a generational banger. The children will learn. Vampire Nighthawk. 1 black for a 2/3 with flying Death Touch lifelink. Beautiful. Masterpiece.
It's kind of funny how, like, we just talked about, oh, there's this package of Dominaria United cards with like Tolarian Terror and Essence Scatter and like, the -1/-0 draw card, and then there's also like eerie similarities to Zendikar when like there's the removal spell is Burst Lightning, Disfigure.
Yeah.
Like the things that do not answer this cleanly on 3 mana, plus like a bunch of benefits for having this, because obviously the life and the flying matters. So this card's going to be, I think, just as good as it was before.
Absolutely. Yeah, this one has not aged poorly. It was printed, 15 years ago at this point, and it's still great.
Oh, God.
Has
it really been that long?
Yeah, sorry to make you weak in the knees there a little bit. Achy back. Just for some context, when this card was printed in Zendikar, it was like, I actually wasn't playing, but I played a decent amount of Zendikar and listened to enough content when I play like flashbacks and MTGO. It was like top 3 cards in the set, correct?
Yeah, like including like rares.
Yeah, including rares, exactly. So I'm gonna give Vampire Nighthawk an A minus. I think it's deserved.
Yeah, I was still gonna go B plus.
Yeah,
but you might be right about that.
So another little data point here to point towards, and not that we get too in the weeds of grades, but there was like the rare version of this in Zendikar Rising, and that also was like one of the best versions of it. One of the best cards in that set, and that was much more recent, and it was a little bit better for what it's worth. But yeah, I'm gonna stick with my A minus.
Okay.
Yeah.
I like it.
Infernal Vessel is up next. 2 and a black for a 2/1 human cleric. When it dies, if it wasn't a demon, you return to the battlefield under its owner's control with 2 +1/+1 counters on it, and it becomes a demon. So it's a 2/1 for 3 that dies into a 4/3.
And that demon, if you then fake your own death, it can reset as a 2/1 again.
Oh, that's cute. Yeah, that's cool.
So there's some fodder here. It's this whole like package. I really like what, like, they're all on their own would be kind of underwhelming, but together make something similar to what I felt like the ping version of in Duskborn with like cracked skull and infectious whatever sporogenic infection and all the one ping things.
Yeah, Fear Lost Teeth.
The whole sacrifice package here looks pretty well supported.
Yeah, I totally agree. And I don't think this is like a super awesome rates for a sacrifice card, but it's a solid one. Like I would give this a C.
Yeah, I like C for this.
Yeah, cool. Seeker's Folly is up next. 3 and a black for a sorcery. It's got 2 options. You can only choose one though. Either target opponent discards 2 cards, or creatures in your opponent's control get -1, -1 until end of turn. I like the spread. One's good against aggro, one's good against lower decks.
Yeah, is it? You think you're going to be main decking this?
I think so. Yeah, I think you will. So one thing to note. We haven't touched on too many cards that this affects, but the new rules for multi-blocks do make -1/-1 to your opponent's team, or -2 or whatever, a little bit better. Because what happens now is, like, with these new rules, is you're able to divide, like, you attack with a 5/5, and you line up block, or your opponent lines up blocks with 2 big creatures, and you can say 3 damage to that, 2 damage to that, 3 damage to that, and finish it off with a -1/-1. You weren't able to do that as easily with the previous rules. So just a little note. I don't think that makes the card insanely better or anything, but it is better than if this was printed in a previous set.
It makes that line a real disaster if they counter this, though.
That is true. Yeah, yeah. Keep both their things. Yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think this is a pretty solid card. Nothing I'm excited about. I'd give Secret's Fall like a C minus.
Okay, I wrote. Yeah, I think you're right that it's enough better that we won't give it a sideboard grade, but I gave it a D plus.
Okay, yeah, that's totally fair enough. Next up is Midnight Snack. This is 2 black for an enchantment. It's got raid. If you raided this turn, you make a food token on your end step. It also has the ability 2 black, sacrifice this enchantment. Target opponent loses X life, or X is the amount of life you gained this turn.
No, thank you.
No, I think it just does not do enough and is too inefficient. Yeah, are we? Is this a straight F? Do you think there's any deck?
Oh, definitely.
Yeah.
I think this is not even close to
Yeah,
being
no. I was kind of like just like going through all the cards we've seen so far. I'm like, is there anything that like would really make me like? I kind of want like 2 things on a card like this. So like, oh, you care about this and this, but yeah, I don't think there's enough to justify the rate on this, which is not very good. So yeah, I'll give an F to Midnight Snack.
Even if you make 2 food, which is not that many,
No.
like, even 3 food, you have to spend 7 to 9 mana to get them to lose, 6 to 9 life or whatever.
Yeah, and it's not like there's like a ton of lifelink running around or anything where it's like, oh, you can crash in and your creatures die, but you gain 4 life. Like, we haven't seen that much lifelink. So yeah, I'll give an F to Midnight Snack as well.
Yeah.
Hero's Downfall up next. 1 black for an instant, destroy target creature or planeswalker. Murder plus.
Yeah, murder.
Yeah.
It's uncommon. That's fine. Murders, we've given it almost always a C plus. I'm happy to give this one another C plus.
Yep, and worth noting, there are 5 planeswalkers in the set, so sometimes that planeswalker line will come up. Ooh, this one, not so great. Stromkirk, Blood Thief. This is 2 black for a 2/2. At the beginning of your end step, if an opponent lost life this turn, put a +1/+1 counter on target vampire you control. So once again, I will, kind of ding myself here. I haven't been calling out vampires too much, but a lot of the black cards we've seen have been vampires. That said, doesn't matter too much. This card's not very good.
Yeah, like even in Innistrad when it had vampire interlopers, this card still wasn't amazing.
Yeah. I'm gonna give this a D.
Yeah, I think that's fair.
Yeah.
I'll join you.
Revenge of the Rats. 2 black for a sorcery. Create a tapped 1/1 rat creature token for each creature card in your graveyard. Flashback 2 black. So same cost as the casting cost.
The fact that this has flashback is huge.
Yeah, really, really big, because if to really make use of this kind of card, you just want to be filling your grave, fill, mill, like self-mill, surveil, and it's always like, well, I just milled the card that I'm doing all this work for. What did I do that for? You can just cast it sometimes, which is great.
Yeah, like they do come in tapped, so it's not going to stabilize you. So you need to be stable. But this can just be your win condition.
Yeah, absolutely.
Play blue black, mill a bunch. Get to like 5 cards in library. Really hope they don't have the angel that exiles your graveyard, and then make a ton of 1/1s. Just win the game.
Yeah, I don't think this is quite going to reach spider spawning levels, not even close, because that card was 1 better, 2 I think had a little more support. But I would give this like a build around C plus.
That I literally wrote that for myself.
Hey, nice, awesome, great. All right, next up, Zombify. They're actually printing a 4-mana Zombify in Standard, which, well, it's actually just Zombify. 4 mana, sorcery, return target creature card from your graveyard to the battlefield.
This is bad though, right?
Yeah, it's still not very good. I think they felt like, yeah, we could probably print this. Like they kind of had a soft rule for the longest time. It's like, yeah, these are going to be 5 mana effects. Now it's 4. It's still not going to be great. Yeah, I don't think this makes it all that much better. I give Zombify a D.
Yeah, like you're not. If you're zombifying a 4-drop, it's worse than just playing a 4-drop because you have to jump through hoops to get there.
Yep.
And you're not really playing that many things bigger than 4, and like you can't cast it on turn 4. So I know a lot of people really like this card, so I just thought I'd talk about it a bit. But this card is much better in constructed formats than limited.
Yeah, for sure. Gonna join me at D then?
Yes.
Okay, sweet. Billowing Shriekmass is up next. This is 3 black for a 2/3 flyer. When it enters, you mill 3 cards, and Threshold, it gets +2/+1. So if you have 7 cards in your grave, this is a 4 mana 4/4 flyer. Otherwise, it's not very good. And even if this was always a 4 mana 4/4 flyer, it wouldn't be phenomenal.
it does spot you like half of it.
Yeah, that is fair.
What were you gonna give this? Because I think maybe like you're talking it pretty down, and I
Yeah,
wasn't super low on this.
I was gonna give it a D plus, but I could be convinced it's more in the low C range.
Yeah, like I mill 3 cards is you say your 4 mana cards want ETBs. Like I know it's not card advantage, but that is a
Yeah,
very relevant
no,
ETB.
you're right, you're right. Yeah, I'll bump it up. I'll give it a C minus.
Okay.
Yeah, sounds good. Tragic Banshee is up next. This is 4 and a black for a 5/3 with Morbid. When this creature enters, target creature an opponent controls gets -1/-1 until end of turn. But if a creature died this turn, that creature gets -13 at -13 until end of turn. So there was the Morkrut Banshee from OG Innistrad. And that was very, very similar to this card. Very overrated as far as like what people expected it to do and what it ended up doing. Like we said at the beginning, we talked about Morbid, way harder to trigger than it might seem. But that -1, I think, makes a big difference, right? Just having an actual effect is not just a vanilla creature. I think then pushes into this is actually a pretty strong card range.
Warcraft Banshee has a soft spot in my heart because both of the drafts I did at Worlds where I barely missed top 8, I played green black Morbid,
Oh,
which was
nice.
like considered the worst deck, but made it work. So yeah, this is much better because Warcraft Banshee was what -4 for Morbid, otherwise nothing, and this is 1 to 13.
Right.
That's a big upgrade.
Big upgrade, yeah. And I also think that just, not to make like a bunch of OG Innistrad comparisons, but I think we've seen a lot of good ways to sacrifice things in black. So you can do this on command a little bit more.
Yeah, it will mean a lot of times you'll have to wait till turn 6 because if you're using like Eaten Alive or the Hungry Ghoul or something, like it'll cost you mana, which is another reason why I like the Gourmand so much more because
Yeah,
it's
totally.
free. But yeah, I think like you'll be willing to wait. We saw what was it, Wix Patrol
Yep, Wix
from
Patrol.
Boomburrow,
Mm-hmm.
and this thing is just like basically a better version on like if you're doing it on 6 mana, -13 is
Right.
gonna kill anyone.
Yeah, I'm willing to get hurt again. Like I said before, I'm willing to take the bait and give it a high grade and then be wrong about it. But I'm gonna give Tragic Banshee a B minus.
Yeah, I was thinking of even going up to a B,
Yeah. Okay.
and I think I will. I,
Okay.
I, I
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
this.
Nice. Yeah. I'll keep my B minus, but sounds good. We've got Arbiter of Woe up next. This is 4 black back for a 5/4 flyer. As an additional cost to cast it, you have to sacrifice a creature. And when this creature enters, each opponent discards a card and loses 2 life, and you draw a card and gain 2 life. So, gotta offer a little something up front, but this is card advantage. Like, you draw a card, they discard a card. And the drain. That matters a lot, too.
Yeah, they do. Well, they won't always have a card in hand
Mm-hmm.
to discard. And this is one where, yeah, you really don't want to be sacrificing anything of actual presence.
Right.
So this one probably gets a synergy grade, I would think. Like you need the fodder for it.
Yeah, I
But
would say
if you
so,
have the
too.
synergy, I think it's like a C plus.
Yep, C+. That sounds about right to me. All right,
Okay.
and that's the end of Black. So, yeah, I think just some closing comments on Black here. Like you said, really nice sacrifice, death package. Its creatures seem pretty good for the most part. Black often has some kind of crappy creatures, and I think we've there's some of them in there that are not so great, but I think Black's got a lot of pretty good cards too.
Yeah, a lot of good removal.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, but both of its removal spells, I mean, as it should be for Black, like both of its common removal spells bake into a pie and stab, like some of the best ones in the set. So, yeah. Excited to draft Black. All right, now on to red here. So, starting off with Fanatical Firebrand. This is a single mana 1/1 haste, and you can sacrifice this creature to deal 1 damage to any target. This creature was in Rivals of Ixalan, I believe, and was quite good there. Like we mentioned, there's a lot of X ones in this set, or healthy helping of them, and just that like 1/1 haste gets in for a few points, and then maybe actually kills an X1, maybe finishes something off in combat, can go to the face, like that matters some amount of the time. This is a pretty good 1-drop.
Yeah, triggers morbid too.
Triggers Morbid, yeah, love to see that. I would give Fanatical Fireburn a C+.
Yeah, I like it. There's a lot of 2 1s and 3 1s
Yep.
on the 2 drops scale.
Yeah, and like you said, a good foil to Healer's Hawk. All right, here is another one we've been mentioning many times: Burst Lightning. I was actually pretty surprised that they printed this. It feels like they've been holding off on printing this card in a standard set for a really long time. Another original OG Zendikar card. Single red mana for an instant. It deals 2 damage to any target player, so it's just shock. But you can kick it for 4 mana, so it's 5 mana total. If it was kicked, it deals 4 damage instead.
It's so good.
So good, yeah. It's ridiculous. Gonna end
Like,
a
it's
lot of games.
so efficient. It kills pretty much anything. It's like a split card, like,
Yeah.
and it goes face. Like 4 damage to the face is a lot of damage.
So much. Yeah, like the modality on this is just so good. Like it practically has 4 modes if you want to squint a little bit.
Yeah, I think this is a B.
Yep, I was just gonna give it a B too. Awesome, great card. Next up is Thrill of Possibility. This is what we've seen a lot of times before. 1 red for an instant. As an additional cost to cast it, you discard a card and you draw 2 cards. I think we can just solidly slap a D on this. There's not too many reasons to want this effect.
Really? I disagree with you on that.
Okay, I mean there's the draw 2 stuff that is minor, but okay.
Well, so this is like, what are you doing with your blue-red deck?
Yeah, like it's a spell that cycles, but I always feel I think we've had this kind of effect before in decks or in sets with blue-red decks, and it's never like one of the better spells to cast.
It's often a sorcery, though.
Like half the time it's just Thrill of Possibility though.
Yeah, it is sometimes throw
Yeah,
a
yeah, yeah.
possibility. But between like you wanting Threshold and like Tolarian Terror, like
Yeah,
this is
yeah, okay. So you want to give it a D plus then, or like what? Are you a C believer?
I'm gonna go down to C minus for this.
Okay, I'm gonna give it a D still. I'm not quite convinced, but
Okay.
yeah. I do think my comment that there's not many reasons to want it, it was probably a bit overselling it a little bit, or underselling it a little bit, but yeah. Sure Strike, up next. Combat Trick. 1 red for an instant. Target creature gets +3/+0 and gains first strike until end of turn. Kills most things in combat.
Yeah, very unexciting trick.
Gets the job done.
Somewhere between D and D plus.
Yeah, I was going to give it a D+.
Okay.
Next up is Firebrand Archer. 1 red for a 2/1. Whenever you cast a non-creature spell, this creature deals 1 damage to each opponent.
So would you rather we talked about this about the blue mana dork last set, but would you rather this is a 2/1 or a 1/3?
I think a 1/3.
I think so, right?
Yeah. I mean, to just put some real world practical experience in, like I've played with this card and the 1/3 versions, and the 1/3 versions are better, or were better in those sets. So, again, set context matters, but I think this is a little bit worse than the 1/3 versions.
So how low grade does this get for you then?
I think it's like it's a fine filler card. Like I would give it a D plus probably.
D plus? It
Yeah.
goes into the D range?
Yeah.
Okay. I was between C minus and D plus, but
Yeah.
I'll let you talk me into the D plus.
Yeah, for sure. Next up is Courageous Goblin. 1 red for a 2/2. Whenever this creature attacks while you control a creature power 4 or greater, it gets +1/+0 and gains menace until end of turn.
Yeah, if you can enable this is a really good 2-drop.
Yeah. Yeah, just
It's almost certainly just like red green, I think. But so it probably gets a synergy grade. But if there's a number of 3-drops that'll turn this on immediately, and then it's like really good if it's attacking as a 3/2 menace on turn 3.
yeah, red and green being the last 2 colors that we're looking at. We haven't seen a lot of those 3 drops that do that, but yeah, there's a good handful of them. So yeah, you want to do this like between a C and a C plus. I as much as I like the text, I actually feel it's going to be more of a C than a C plus.
I wrote synergy C plus.
Okay,
for
yeah,
myself.
that's fair enough for sure. Next up is Axguard Cavalry. This is 1 red for a 2/2. You can tap it, and target creature gains haste until end of turn.
Yeah, the only time you really want this is when you have like really big creatures that you're hasting out, because otherwise you just may as well be attacking with your 2-drop in a lot of cases. I don't think there's a lot of that here. This is probably like a D plus.
Yep, D plus. I agree. Yeah, we've been handing out a lot of D pluses today. I think partially just there is definitely some disparity between like the really good cards and the not so great cards in the set. But I also think that we tend to grade, I think, slightly higher than the cards end up being. So I actually think, you know, if you're sitting at home thinking like, oh, they're getting a lot of D's, I think I would like to think we're doing it accurately. And I think this kind of card kind of just, you know, is emblematic of that. Just never a card you're excited about. All right. Goblin Surprise. Good name. Up next, this is 2 and a red for an instant. It's got 2 modes, and you choose one. Either creatures you control get +2/+0 until end of turn, or create 2 1/1 red goblin creature tokens.
Yeah, the fact that this is a spell is really nice too.
Yeah,
Like,
for sure.
Instant speed 2 goblins. This was an uncommon in AFR. Is that right?
Yeah, you see a pair of goblins.
Yeah, and I think it was pretty good there.
Yeah, it was. It was definitely solid. And yeah, like
being both an enabler and a payoff for going wide is
Yep.
pretty good for a common 3-drop.
Yeah. I think it's probably like a C plus in a red white deck and then a C anywhere else, I would say.
Yeah, I think that sounds right to me.
Yeah. Sounds good. Next up is Goblin Borders. A lot of goblins in red. 2 and a red for a 3/2. Raid enters with a counter if you attack this turn.
So you want to be on the play for this.
Yeah.
But a 4/3 for 3 is solid, and I don't think it's that hard to enable this. Like it's not good, but it's not bad either.
Yeah, it is technically a 4-power creature sometimes, but not one that you can like play and make your goblin 2/2 goblin menacing. Unfortunately, on turn 3.
Right. It doesn't work on both sides. That's true.
Yeah, I think this is just gonna end up being kind of whatever. I would give this a D.
A D? Yeah, I'll go D plus.
Okay. We've got Crackling Cyclops up next. This is 2 and a red for an 0/4. Whenever you cast a non-creature spell, it gets +3/+0 until end of turn.
You preempted this pretty well, but I'm just gonna give another D plus. Like these red creatures are not that exciting, and I think like in the blue-red deck this is probably fine, but it's not even like it doesn't block that well, and I don't think there's any trample trick to kill with it. Oh yeah, Balmor does get trampled.
Yeah, that's the one thing I had in the back of my head reading this. I was like, oh, okay, that could be something.
That's true. So what were you gonna give this?
Yeah, I still wasn't gonna give it a very high grade. It's like a synergy, like C minus maybe.
Sure. Okay. That sounds fair.
Yeah, because like the play pattern for these blue-red decks is generally just like you play your few cheap threats and then you just cast all your spells. And I think this card could be responsible for quite a bit of damage if you have a Balmor or two.
Yeah, you're probably right. I'll join you on the C minus.
Cool. Sower of Chaos up next. This is 3 and a red for a 4/3. It's got an activated ability, 2 and a red. Target creature can't block this turn. Yeah. It's very reminiscent of the white creature that 4-drop that drew you 2 power creatures. I think this was probably a little bit better because it just ends the game rather than like drawing you into more stuff, but I don't think it's good either.
This is like another D plus?
Yep. I'll give it a D plus.
Okay.
Spitfire Lagak. This is a 3 and a red, 3/4. Landfall, you deal your opponent 1 damage. This card was not very good in its original set, and that was a set that actually enabled it a little bit better. It just, the damage output on this is like kind of whatever. It's a 3-power 4-drop. Not exciting.
Yeah, do we go all the way down to F for this one?
I was gonna give it a D minus, and that seems harsh, but it plays it so much weaker than it might even look, I think. So yeah, D minus for me.
I'll give it the F, just because there's so many better things to do for 4
Totally, yeah, I buy that. All right, here we go. This is the active trees. Involuntary Employment. 3 and a red for a sorcery. Gain control of target creature until end of turn. Untap that creature. It gains haste. And you make a treasure token.
Yeah, so it spots you the mana for Eaten Alive.
Yeah. It's a good set for Steel and Sack.
Yeah, would you splash either half? Like the active trees or the sacrifice outlets if in your like black green or red green deck or whatever.
I can imagine a deck that does that. Like I had to make a recent comparison, I a few times in Duskmourn I was like a black green deck with a lot of Final Vengeances, and I splashed the active trees in there. So yeah, I could definitely see it happening. I also think probably after really just going through all the cards like we have, I imagine Black Red is a little more of a steal and sack deck than a raid. I want to keep attacking, send in my things just to get raid triggers deck. Because a lot of the raid triggers we've seen have not been that impressive, and this is, this plays so well with so many of the black cards.
Yeah, I definitely agree with that.
Yeah.
The raid triggers, who cares?
Yeah, who cares? So it's a synergy card, kind of just has to be. But I think it's a good synergy card. I would give this like a synergy B minus.
Sure.
Yeah.
I'll join you there then.
Next up is Gorehorn Raider. This is 5 mana, 4 in a red for a 4/4. If you've raided, it deals 2 damage to any target when it enters.
There we go. That's the payoff.
Yeah, that yeah, as soon as we're like, raid triggers, who cares? This is a good raid trigger. Yeah, shocking anything.
It is.
That's good. That's good.
And another way to punish 2 toughness creatures, as if there wasn't enough already.
Yeah. So it's a 5-drop. Can't rate it too high, but it's a good one. I give this a C.
Yeah, I like that.
Yeah. Which is high praise for a 5-drop. Incinerating Blast is up next. This is 5 mana sorcery. Incinerating Blast deals 6 damage to target creature. You may discard a card. If you do, draw a card. Man, sorcery.
I would like this to have the uncounterable text on it as a clean answer to terror.
Sure. Yeah, it's a little oomph on it.
Yeah, as is, I don't think you're playing it basically anywhere.
No.
It's like a D.
Yeah, I would agree. D for Incinerating Blast. All right, uncommons now. First one is another pretty classic card, Frenzied Goblin, single red mana for a 1/1. When it attacks, you can pay red. If you do, target creature can't block this turn. If you haven't played with Frenzied Goblin, it probably looks a little bit worse than it actually is. It's a super annoying card.
There's another card that was in a lot of cubes initially.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, it was a mono red staple for a long time.
Yeah, that text is surprisingly relevant a lot of the time.
For sure. It's not a busted card or anything. Like I would still just give it a C, but it's a good one drop. Yeah. Next up is Bolt Wave. This is a pretty quick F. Single red mana sorcery. Bolt Wave deals 3 damage to each opponent. Not for a limited deck.
Especially in a format with like gain lands.
Yeah.
Like,
Oh god.
Makes it even harder. Yeah.
Yeah. All right. We move on to Goblin Negotiation. This is X red for a sorcery. Goblin Negotiation deals X damage to target creature. Create a number of 1/1 red goblin creature tokens equal to the amount of excess damage to that creature, dealt to that creature this way. Ooh, there's a dream.
Okay, well, what do you want to give this?
A pretty low grade. So you have to just look at this from the lens of it's super inefficient to start out with, right? Like, it's a 4 mana deal 2. It's a 5 mana deal 3. I guess you're looking at really inefficient removal spell, and then like you almost want to look at that as the buyout, right? Where it's super inefficient, and then you're hoping this to be like a 7 mana spell, kill their 2/2, make some goblins. That doesn't sound that bad though. Now that they say it out loud, I'm wondering about this one. Yeah.
I'm just waiting for that grade so I can lock you in.
I know. I'm going to give it a D.
A D? Yeah. I am going to give this an F.
Oh, okay. Yeah. You fooled me, but in the wrong direction. I was wondering if you were going to be a little higher. Yeah, it just is, not good on any early turn of the game.
Yeah, this is just, I think the rate on this is just atrocious.
Just too bad.
Yeah.
Yep. Next up is a Braid. Back to uncommon after being common for a set. This is 2 mana, 1 red instant. Choose one, deal 3 to target creature, or destroy target artifact. Yeah, it's good.
Yeah, it's probably worse than Burst Lightning, though, so it's interesting that they like, swap the rarities on that.
That is true, yeah. I when you put it that way, I'm very surprised that they didn't do it the other way.
Yeah. I still think this is like a B minus, just because it's very inefficient.
Yep,
but
I would agree. B minus. Next up is Slumbering Cerebus. This is 1 and a red for a 4/2. Okay, what's going on here? So it doesn't untap during your untap step, but Morbid, at the beginning of each untap step, if a creature died this turn, untap this creature.
So the dream with this is you play this with a bunch of removal.
Mm-hmm.
Because you can pre-combat your removal, attack, and then it'll untap at the end of turn.
Yep.
If you're getting into combat with this, it's almost certainly just trading and dying. But it is just like a passive enabler for all your red green stuff. So I think there's a place for this. I just can see people being a little over eager with it, attacking too early and maybe regretting it.
Yeah. I think it's more good than bad. It has some awkwardness to it, but like you play it on 2, you're right. You probably will just, trade off if that's the case. If you, don't have any, burst lightnings to go like kill your 2, play another 2 drop. But sometimes your opponent like plays a 1/1 on turn 2, like they play the companion or whatever it's called, the cat that draws you a card, and this gets in a hit, and then it's 4 damage. Like that's worth a lot on its own.
Yeah, and like it's either end step. You just need something to die
Yeah.
at some point.
Yeah, each end step. That's
Well,
good. Yeah.
I guess if your opponent end steps their removal, this is not untapping.
Right. And good for you to know too. Like actually for all these morbid cards, good to keep a eye on the fact that like if you plan to cast a removal spell and turn, you really want to do it main phase 2 if you have a morbid trigger.
Yeah, it's also nice with the with bite down. Like it's a 4 power, 2 mana.
Yeah, good for biting. I would give this Cerebus a C+.
Yeah, I think that's fair.
Next up is Heartfire Immolator, 1 red for a 2/2 prowess, and you can pay 1 and sack it. It deals its damage. It deals damage equal to its power to target creature or planeswalker. Yeah, super solid.
Yeah, we talk about kind of all these enablers, but again, sacrifice, morbid, prowess.
All good stuff.
Like going into multiple archetypes that's fitting into.
Yep, I'd give the Immolator a B-.
B-?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay.
Next up is Bulk Up. 1 red for an instant. Double target creature's power until end of turn. Flashback 4 red.
Yeah, so the idea is for 8 mana, you can quadruple something's power, I guess.
I guess it's kind of an interesting combo card with the 0/4 Cyclops.
Yeah, I guess the first time you cast this, it's already 8 damage.
Yeah.
It's a lot of damage.
Yeah, I think that's kind of where you want to imagine it in like a spell deck. I mean, it could be an okay card in a red-green deck, but again, like we're getting into like combo territory. This isn't just like a combat trick you play. Like you need to be setting up some sort of trample, some sort of something. It's niche in its applications.
I wrote down Synergy D+.
Yeah, I think that's very appropriate. I like that too. Synergy D+ for Bulk Up. Next is a simple card, Brazen Scourge. 1 red for a 3/3 haste.
Yeah, another 3-drop that you can't accelerate into from Llanowar Elves.
Yep. I would give this a C.
Okay.
Yeah. Maybe even a C-. Like.
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah. Yeah, the double pips always hurts more than it might seem.
Right, because this is only really going to be effective on turn 3 most of the time. So if you can't cast it turn 3, it loses a lot of its appeal.
Yeah. C- then?
Yeah.
Okay, sounds good. Next is Fiery Annihilation. 2 red for an instant. It deals 5 damage to target creature. And you can also exile up to 1 target equipment attached to that creature. And if that creature would die this turn, you exile it instead.
Real punish for the picks.
Yes! Yeah, ooh, yeah, real nasty.
And if you're the pick player, you got to kind of think about what creature you're going to put it on if you see like mountains across from you, because you're going to lose your pick pretty much either way, no matter what. But you also don't want to lose your, your best 5 toughness creature or whatever.
Yeah. It's also just a good rate. Like 3 mana, deal 5, exile the creature, like a souped up Scorching Dragonfire.
Oh yeah, this card's we're talking about the equipment line, but the 5 damage is the main appeal for this.
Exactly. That's the main course here. I would give Fiery Annihilation I kind of want to just give it a B. I think just
I think it's at least a B.
Yeah,
it could even be B+, but I'll join you at B.
Next up is Fire Spitter Whelp. This is 2 red for a 2/2 flyer. Whenever you cast a non-creature or a dragon spell, this creature deals 1 damage to each opponent.
I like this thing having flying.
Yeah, I was initially kind of down on it, but I think if you just treat it as like a 3/2 flyer in the right deck. That's okay.
Yeah, like Balmor kind of already encourages you to not play like a super grindy game, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like you are trying to kill them.
Yep.
And if you're trying to kill them, like you're not blocking with your pinger effects anyways. So
Yep.
like having flying is kind of nice on this.
Yep.
I think it's like a C.
Yeah, I was gonna say synergy C, like for a blue red.
Sure.
Yeah. Seismic Rupture up next. 2 in a red for a sorcery. Seismic Rupture deals 2 damage to each creature without flying. Sideboard.
Sideboard, yeah.
Yep. Next up is Strongbox Raider. This is 2 red for a 5/2. The raid trigger is exile the top 2 cards of your library. You can choose one of them, and until end of your next turn, you can play that card.
So I was an Alania's Pathmaker apologist in
Yeah.
Bloomburrow, even though it didn't have great stats. I like that card.
Yeah, me too.
This card, I don't know if it's better or worse.
I know, it's
Like,
different.
I would rather have a 4/3 than a 5/2,
Mm-hmm.
and I would rather it's only one red pip, of course. But the selection is really big.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, and like we the thing is we've been talking about, like, double pips hurt more than they might seem is something we've said a lot, but uh as you go up the curve it matters less and less. Like I care way more about a double pip 3-drop or a 3-drop having double pips than a 4-drop.
Yeah, and I mean, it's kind of funny that both this and the black red uncommon, like the raid payoffs that die to the shocks, like the burst lightnings and the disfigures. If you are pod drafting, you're more likely to be the player with those in
Sure.
your deck. So
Yeah.
it does become a little bit better because you're not like if this dies to burst lightning, you're pretty unhappy.
Yeah,
But
you are.
if you're the red player, you're more likely to be the one with the burst lightning.
Mm-hmm.
So getting a little bit off on a tangent there, but I can picture on arena this is gonna die to a lot of burst lightnings, but I still think it's okay.
Yeah, I think it all kind of balances out to like a C.
Yeah, I wanted to go higher, but I think it would be irresponsible of me to do so. So
Yeah,
I think I'll join you.
for sure. Battlesong Berserker up next. 3 in a red for a 3/4. Whenever you attack, target creature you control gets +1/+0 and gains a menace until end of turn. So I think a better most valuable slayer, mostly.
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah.
We've seen like the leech from MKM, and then most valuable slayer, and then now this. Like they're pushing this effect quite a bit. And
Yeah,
the third power on this is pretty good, and menace is a very dangerous ability.
for sure. Yeah, so most valuable slayer, it was a funny card. It went on a bit of a roller coaster. I think we slightly underrated it, and then I think the community overrated it at the beginning of the set. It kind of balanced out to be like, yeah, a pretty solid red aggro card. If I were to regrade that, I would give most valuable slayer like a C. And I think Berserker's probably a C plus.
Yeah, I was gonna say almost exactly what you just said.
Awesome. Oh God. Hitsuga's Second Right is a hilarious card. This is 3 in a red for an instant. If a player has exactly 10 life, the right deals 10 damage to that player.
If target player.
Oh, sorry,
so
target.
you
Yeah,
won't
yeah,
be-
target player. You have to target still. Yeah.
It won't kill you, thankfully. I'm not here to tell people not to have fun. You can play this if you want.
Mark is telling you how to win, though.
I think this card is terrible.
Yes.
I am gonna give it an F. It's kind of funny that if your opponent has like a fanatical firebrand, then you can't use this because they can just ping themselves.
Yeah, that's really funny.
And it is possible to engineer game states where this is going to hit, but the average case for this is just going to rot in your hand, and
Yeah.
I'm going to give it an F.
Absolutely. Yeah. All right. Well, next up, we got Dragon Trainer. This is 3 red for a 1/1. When it enters, you make a 4/4 dragon and flying. Yeah, great.
C plus type
Yeah,
of thing?
I would even go with B minus. I think this card's really good. Like super simple, but like 5/5 worth of stats, over 2 bodies, 4 of it's flying. I don't know.
Yeah, maybe you're right. It's, yeah, like anytime it's a 5-drop, it's weird, but like this thing's pretty embarrassing against the blue. Oh, am I still there?
Yep, you're good.
Okay, my stream is refreshing. Yeah, so this pretty bad into the blue mana war.
Yeah, that's fair. Yeah, I'll stick with my B minus. You want to stay with your C plus?
I think so.
Okay, cool. Another dragon, the OG Shivan Dragon, 4 red for a 5/5 flyer, and it's got fire breathing. You can pump it for a single red mana, gets +1/+0 until end of turn, and just do that as many times as you have red mana.
Yeah, it's not what it used to be. That's
Nah,
for sure.
definitely. Just comes down and you paid your 6 mana and they just kill it, and you're sad that you've traded 6 for 3 or whatever.
Or they bounce it.
Yeah,
Like, just...
even that. Yeah, that's it. Even might be more of a disaster. Hate to do it, but D.
Yeah, I wrote a generous D plus.
Yeah,
you might be right about.
I'll
D,
give
though.
it that. I'll optimistic D plus for Shivering Dragon.
Okay.
Game has come a long way. All right, well that's red. I mean, red's pretty straightforward. It is killing you, and it's not really doing anything else. But that's what red can That's what red should do in this kind of set.
I do think red's a little worse than the other 3 colors we've seen.
Yeah, it has like one or two, like a few really standout cards, but I think the average card is worse for sure. I agree with that. Yeah. All right. Okay. And now home stretch here. Moving on to green with a uncommon down to common reprint here. Bushwhack. Single green mana for a sorcery. 2 modes. Choose one. Either search your library for a basic land and put it into your hand, or target creature you control fights target creature you don't control. This was in Brothers War, and it was pretty good. Like, I just, to give it a grade quickly, I would give like a C+. One thing you want to consider with this card is the first one. If you're a heavy enough green deck, you can just replace whatever your secondary color is, like that land. Say you're a red-green deck. You can go to 16 lands pretty easily. Play this as your 17th land. You can't keep doing that. Like, the first one is probably where I would stop. But yeah, it's a good card.
Yeah, I there was actually more ways to spend your 1 mana in Brothers War than there is here. So I cut this from a lot of Brothers War decks, but I was expecting it to be better, and I do think it'll be back closer to where I initially expected it to be here.
Yeah, for sure. C+?
C+.
Cool. Next up is Giant Growth. Single green mana, instant. Target creature gets +3/+3.
Fine trick,
Yeah.
not exciting.
Yep.
Like D+ type of thing.
Yep. D+ combat trick. Totally
Yep.
reasonable. All right, here's the big one. Llanowar Elves. Single green mana for a 1/1. It's an elf, of course, and it taps to add a green mana. So, yeah, this card is... You kind of want to put it in 2 kinds of decks, I would say, broadly. One, a deck that's just like powering out really good 3s. Just go the nice curve of 1 to 3, and then of course 4 and 5 if you can. Or a deck that's just like, spending its mana every single turn as the game goes on. You have some card draw, you have some mana sinks. You don't want to play it in a really low curve deck. Like, that's, I think, a trap a lot of players fall into. They hear how good Llanowar Elves is, and they're just like, I'll throw it in any green deck. If your curve is like just a bunch of 2s and, some 3s and like a 4, it's not going to be very good there. It's going to be a 1/1 a lot of the time. But it's not hard to make this card good. It's inherently very powerful, and I'm just going to stamp Llanowar Elves with a B.
With a B.
Yep.
I was going to go B-.
B-? All right, fair enough. Yeah.
Yeah, like it's very good in the opening hand, but it does have, again, like we talked about, there's 3 cards that answer it cleanly for 1 mana.
Yeah, for sure.
There's not a lot of exciting green common 3 drops to ramp into. So, and it's pretty bad top deck, but a good card, and it will have very good opening hand stats.
Yeah, for sure. Next up is Wary Thespian. This is 1 green for a 3/1. When it enters or dies, surveil 1, and it's a cat for what it's worth.
Right, which is, I guess, relevant in this set.
Yeah.
So, it's got types, too. I've liked this card in both March of the Machines and in Duskmourn. I do think there's a lot of reasons to like it slightly less here with the 1 toughness with all the tokens lying around.
Yeah.
But I'm still probably going to be happy to play these.
Yeah, I would just give this a C.
Yeah.
Yep. Gnarlid Colony is up next. This is 1 green for a 2/2. It's got Kicker for 2 green. And if this creature was kicked, it enters with with 2+1/+1 counters on it. Each creature you control with a +1/+1 counter on it has trample. Eh.
Yeah, it's just pretty bad rate either side. I think this is like a D plus.
Yeah, I would even just give it a D. I think it's just very, very vanilla.
Yeah, that's probably true.
Yeah.
Because the flexibility is when it's two bad sides, the flexibility doesn't really matter.
Yeah, two bad tastes that don't taste great together. Bite Down up next. 1 and a green for an instant. Target creature you control deals damage equal to its power to target creature or planeswalker you don't control.
Yeah, this is nice.
Yeah.
Good, efficient removal.
Yeah, instant. Bites. All good. C? C+? plus?
I was just gonna say, like, most of the creatures are pretty small, so I don't think there's gonna be too many spots where this can't kill what you want it to.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a fair point. So C+, plus then?
I'm gonna go C plus.
Okay.
I like Bite Down.
Yeah. Dwynen's Elite is up next. This is 1 and a green for a 2/2 elf warrior. When this creature enters, if you control another elf, create a 1/1 green elf warrior creature token. Yeah, pretty good. Pretty solid.
Pretty good, but like the curve of Llanowar Elves into this,
Sure.
not maximizing your mana, right?
Yeah, that is true. That is true. It is more of a turn 4 play some of the time. But we had this. I think this was a Magic Origins card, and that set also had elves as the green black archetype, and it was really good there. Saw some constructed play. So yeah, I mean, when you Llanowar Elves aside, like if you're just in an elf deck, this is just a good card. Actually, this is I didn't realize it was a common now. So yeah,
Yeah. There's also the black one, the Doom Traveler's an elf too, that's a nice curve.
Kind of similar in some ways to the white collect 'em all, right? Where it's just like the more Dwynen's Elites you have. I mean, it doesn't scale, of course, like the white common does, but yeah, these play well with each other.
Yeah, I think this is better.
Yeah, for sure.
Do we give this a synergy grade again?
Yeah, I'm gonna give it a synergy C plus.
Sure, I like that too.
Yeah. Next up is Grow from the Ashes. This is 2 and a green for a sorcery. Search your library for a basic land, put it onto the battlefield, then shuffle. Not tapped, by the way, comes in untapped. If the spell was kicked, and you can kick it for 2 mana, instead search your library for 2 basic lands, put them on the battlefield. So 3 mana, go get a land. 5 mana, go get 2. And you know, on 5 is more when it's relevant, where you go like 5 mana, kick this, play a 2 mana spell. You have to really be like going big and or being very splashy if you care about a 5 mana ramp spell. But you know, just notable play pattern stuff there.
Yeah, I did miss that it was untapped, but I'm still not very high on this. I'm leaning towards giving it a D.
Yeah, I would too. This is if you play Dominaria, like OG Dominaria, you might be a little bit higher on this card than I think you ought to be. Like, this was a card that enabled... It was one of the few cards that helped you splash in a set that really, really wanted you to splash, but there wasn't much fixing. And, yeah, the rate on this just isn't all that good. So I'm going to join you at D.
Okay.
Next up, we've got Ambush Wolf. This is 2 and a green for a 4/2 flash. When it enters, exile up to 1 target card from a graveyard.
So I guess blue-black must be doing something good if there's so much incidental hate for it.
Yeah,
right?
yeah, right?
But this is definitely annoying, like sniping Think Twice or whatever. Like this, it's not a good card, but can be an annoying card.
Yeah, it's a nifty little thing. I would give this a D though. Like it's
I still think it's a D. Like
Yeah.
maybe you play it in a red-green deck here or there, but that's probably gonna be it.
Yep. Beastkin Ranger. This is an interesting one to talk about. 2 and a green for a 3/3 trample. It's an elf. Whenever another creature you control enters, this creature gets +1/+0 until end of turn.
Yeah, so this is what you want to curve your Llanowar Elf into, and it's also another elf for Dwynen's Elite. So
Yep.
there is a little package here.
Yeah, for sure.
The home for that is probably going to be green-white or green-red, I would think.
Yeah, that sounds about right to me.
Could perform well in both of those decks, I think.
Yeah, I think one thing that we've seen, and maybe this is more of a comment for just closing remarks in the set, but the packages contained within each color, like at common, like green is doing elves and black is doing sacrifice and white is doing tokens. Like, I know when I make content for the set in the coming weeks, like that's gonna be a big focus. Like if you're listening to the set review and you walk away from this and you're like, all right, going to do my first draft, really pay attention to that package, those packages in each color. I think those will really guide you in the right direction. Next up, we've got Broken Wings, sideboard card,
Oh,
2 and a green.
you gotta grade this
Oh,
card,
sorry. Yeah, I'm gonna give Beastkin Ranger a C+.
Yeah, it does make you tap out pre-combat, so like
Sure.
makes tricks a little
Yeah.
worse. But Trample's a really nice ability on this. I'll join you.
Broken Wings, sideboard card, 2 and a green for an instant. Destroy target artifact, enchantment, or creature with flying. Pretty simple. We can move on.
Yep.
Next up is Treetop Snare Spinner. 3 and a green for a 1/4 Death Touch Reach. Also has an ability, 2 and a green. Put a +1/+1 counter on target creature you control. Activate only as a sorcery. Man,
So it doesn't stack up very well against the Mana War, but I do like this card.
yeah, it super deters attacks and like is a mana sink as the game goes on.
And it's really hard to deal with.
Yeah, 1/4. Gotta maybe spend your burst lightning on this. I guess it does die to stab in combat pretty nicely. Like they'll have an O2 blocker.
That's true. That's a good point.
Yeah.
Moving the Death Touch.
I think it's got
Oh man, I was so excited about blocking with this thing, and now you just dashed all of that.
or Sure Strike, or like I think it's got a lot going on for a 4-drop with no enter the battlefield effect. But I also don't think it's gonna be that good. I think it's gonna be fine. Like I would give this like a C-.
I'll still go up to C for this.
Okay.
But yeah, I was initially going to give it a C plus, and I think you're right that it's not that good.
Yeah. Okay. Fair enough. We've got Crackling Prowler up next. This is 3 and a green for a 4/3 with Ward 2. So I got some protection built in. It's got Morbid at the beginning of your end step. If a creature died this turn, put a +1/+1 counter on this creature.
Ward is nice on this, and the fact that you can like disguise this and do it post combat and immediately make it into like a 5/4. I think there's something here.
Yeah, not immediately writing it off. Like it passes the does it have protection test. Still not great though. Like I'm still not that alone does not sell me on the card. I would still give this like a C- probably.
Yeah, but C minus for this type of card is better than usual.
Yeah, for
I
sure.
think it's a C minus too.
Yeah. Next up is Elf Sworn Giant for 3 green for a 5/3 reach. Landfall, make a 1/1 elf token. Interesting.
Yeah, so I'm kind of like another Tachiova almost.
Yeah, I mean, it has a lot of the same things we talked about with that card. Yeah, where it's just like, well, you're not going to always have lands by the time this comes down, and sometimes you want to save this as like a, quote-unquote 6-drop. 3 toughness is kind of rough, though.
Yeah, same with Tachiova.
Yeah. And I didn't
I
love
know
that
what you
card.
mean. I'm still it's a 5-drop, and those are pretty replaceable.
Yeah.
Is this like a D plus?
Yeah, I think so. I think D+ for this card. Next up is Apothecary Stomper. 4 green for a 4/4 Vigilance, and you can choose one of 2 things when it enters. Either you gain 4 life, or you put 2 +1/+1 counters on target creature you control. So like interesting Honey Mammoth / Ravenous Lindworm variant here.
Well, Lindworm was a 6/6 that gained 4, and this can't do both.
Can't do both, but you can have the 2 power, be hasty. Put it on something that's attacking this turn. Spread the love around.
Yeah, I do think this is like you're almost never gonna gain the 4 unless you really need it.
Yeah, that's a good point.
So but 6/6 Vigilance, or like it also works with the +1/+1 counter synergy. There's a few cards that care about that. Although, what are the payoffs for having counters on things at common?
There's really not that many. Yeah,
Right thing, is that it?
Trample. Yeah, not a ton. Yeah,
it's kind of weird that they've seeded a green-white archetype around +1/+1 counters and not really have any payoffs.
Yeah,
I guess the other commons haven't really showed us much for that either. So
I think I would give this card a C-. Like I would give, I usually give the, you have both modes of the card at the same time versus this, like a C+. And I think it's like a meaningful difference here.
I think with both modes, this would be even better than a C+.
Yeah, I don't know for sure. Yeah, I give that like just like a B minus.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
So I'll give this a C.
All right. Yeah, fair enough. I could see you being a little more right there. Okay. Home stretch here. Uncommons, starting with Snakeskin Veil. Single green mana for an instant. Put a +1/+1 counter on target creature you control. It gains hexproof until end of turn. Always a good kind of effect in any shape or form it takes. I think I'm just gonna give it a clean C plus.
Yep, I agree with Snakeskin Veil. Nothing necessarily better or worse than usual.
Wildwood Scourge up next. X and a green for a 0/0. It's a Hydra. This creature enters with X +1/+1 counters on it. Whenever one or more +1/+1 counters are put on another non-Hydra creature you control, put a +1/+1 counter on this creature. So
Here's
yeah, you're
a
good.
payoff.
Yep, there's a payoff.
It's not very good though.
No, it's not. This was in Core 2021, and that also had a green-white deck with a +1/+1 counter theme. I think a little more supported, honestly, than the one here. And this card was like a C minus there, I would say. So I'm gonna give it the same.
You're gonna give it the same? I think it's worse.
Even
than
worse?
the
Yeah,
C.
actually, probably you're right. Probably even worse. D plus then. Yeah. Screw the C minus.
I'm gonna go down to a D for this.
All right. Yeah. Fair enough. Mild Mannered Librarian is a single mana 1/1. It's got a 4-mana activated ability, 3 and a green. This creature becomes a werewolf, and you can put 2 +1/+1 counters on it and draw a card, but only activate this once.
Right, but instant speed, and you get
Yeah.
the card even if they kill it in response.
Yeah. I think this
I
is
like
actually
this thing.
pretty good.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, so it's like a Kavu Climber in installments, kind of, right? Yeah, 5
But
minutes.
installment card's way better.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, you can sneak in 1 mana somewhere here and there. Yeah, yeah.
I mean, the Cavalry Climber doesn't die to the goblin that deals the pings for 1.
Sure,
So
yeah, yeah.
there are some downsides, but
I think we give this a C. Maybe C plus.
I'm gonna go with C plus.
Yeah,
for
let's do
this.
C
I like-
plus for Mild Mannered Librarian. I like it.
Yeah.
Next up is a banger, Nessian Hornbeetle. 1 and a green for a 2/2. At the beginning of combat on your turn, if you control another creature power 4 or greater, put a +1/+1 counter on the Nessian Hornbeetle. Yeah, this card's great.
I didn't play with this card, so you tell me what grade to give it, and I'll believe you. on
All
this
right,
one.
yeah, I'm just gonna give it a B. It just gets out of control so quickly. And
Okay.
yeah, I think it's pretty easy to enable just in green. Next up is Eager Truffle Snout. This is 2 and a green for a 4/2 trample, and when it deals combat damage to a player, create a food token. Yeah, great.
This is exactly what I want to curve my Llanowar Elf into.
Oh yeah, yeah. Ooh, 4/2 trample on turn 2. Yeah, that's nice. Card's good.
Yeah, this plays really nicely with Giant Growth too.
Mm-hmm.
Or I think we're about to see Blanchwood Armor. Like it does have the 2 toughness. But,
Yeah, of course, yeah. The ever present problem here. Yeah, I'm going between B minus and C plus. And I think it's probably more on the C plus side of things, but
yeah, probably. Yeah, the 2 toughness pro is probably what kills it. But
yeah.
I do like it.
Yeah, me too. Garruk's Uprising up next. This is 2 and a green for an enchantment. When this enchantment enters, if you control a creature power 4 or greater, draw a card. Creatures have trample, or so creatures you control have trample. And whenever a creature you control with power 4 or greater enters, draw a card. So another reprint here, and I think one of the best versions of this kind of effect that we've seen. Not amazing, still. Like it still has a lot of problems. Of just like if you're a green-red kill you aggro deck, you don't really want to be spending time drawing cards. But maybe if you're a little bit slower and just happen to have a lot of big things, this card can do a little bit of work. Not phenomenal, but that ETB makes up for a lot of it. And giving trample to your giant things matters too. So I would give this like a synergy C, basically.
I wrote build around C minus.
Yeah, that's fair
Pretty-
enough. Next up is Felling Blow. 2 and a green for a sorcery. Put a +1/+1 counter on target creature you control. Then that creature deals damage equal to its power to target creature an opponent controls.
So definitely worse than the instant speed version of this.
Oh, you
But
mean
I
like
think
just
it's
like
still
that we?
playable.
So sorry, say again.
I was gonna say I think this is still playable.
Oh, for sure. Yeah, I think this card is more than playable. I would say it's pretty good. What were you gonna give it?
I wasn't gonna go too high. I was gonna give it like a C plus.
Yeah, okay, me too. Yeah,
Okay.
C plus for Felling Blow. Inspiring Call up next, 2 and a green for an instant. Draw a card for each creature you control with a +1/+1 counter on it. Those creatures gain indestructible until end of turn.
Not so here. I guess these are where the payoffs are for having the plus
Yeah.
one counter deck. But not that excited about this.
No. Yeah, as another card I've played with before. Wasn't particularly good in its OG set. I think this was Dragons of Tarkir, if I remember correctly. Maybe Fate Reforged. And yeah, it's just... There's a dream to be had there where you draw a million cards, but a little too often it just isn't a good rate. Isn't going to draw you a card. Isn't going to do what you want. So I would give this a D. D minus maybe.
D?
Yeah. Next up is... This is a good one. Reclamation Sage. 2 and a green. 2/1. When it enters, you may destroy target artifact or enchantment.
Do you main deck this?
I think so. Yeah, it's also an elf for what it's worth. I didn't call that up, but it's an elf. I think that most decks will have some targets in it, and it has like a not good buyout, but you can just play your 3-mana 2/1, and when you do nab something, it's really really good.
Okay, so blue does not have a sleep effect.
Not playable enchantment removal, but yeah, some people might play it.
Yeah, I guess it's witness protection, but I'm not counting witness
Yeah.
protection.
It's
White
got
has
it's got an artifact creature or two. It's got the wall. It's got
0/6. Yeah, sure.
Yeah.
Okay, but then like white has banishing light, and then there's pick.
Yep, there's some equipment.
Not much else, right? Like,
Yeah, I could see this being worse than it has been. What grade did you want to give it?
I don't think it's good enough to make it out of a sideboard grade for me.
Interesting. Okay, I was just gonna give it like a rock solid C.
Okay, like there's certainly been sets where this thing is incredibly good.
Yeah.
I don't see a ton of targets. Maybe I'm forgetting some, but this set seems to have less artifacts and enchantments than usual.
Okay. No, I think you're right about that. Yeah, I'm probably coming in a little bit too high on it. I'll go to C minus, but I will stand that it's playable, like main deck.
Okay.
Yeah. Next up is, like you mentioned, Blanchwood Armor. Hey, here's something you can kill. It's 3 to green for an enchantment. When it's an enchanted creature gets +1/+1 for each forest you control. Powerful, but also just a very vanilla aura.
Yeah, like you need it to give +3/+3 or more to be worth it. And so you need to be playing near mono green. And maybe like, in week 1 or 2 when you can get all the Llanowars at the table and
Sure.
kind of go nuts, like maybe there's a dream there, but I don't think it's going to be that easy to do.
Yeah, I think you have to be, if not mono green, very, very close to mono green. Put it on a trampler. You have Snakeskin Veil. Like, it's not a 0. It's not an F for sure, but it's a narrow card that needs some setup needs some has a deck building requirements.
There's also the Ward 2 common, which kind of helps a little bit.
Yeah.
But...
It's a weird card to give a grade to. I think probably a synergy grade is appropriate. And I would give like a synergy C. Like if you have the deck, like it's not going to just be like, wow, excellent card. Even when you have the deck, it's going to be a solid card. So yeah, synergy C sounds right to me.
Sure.
Next is Dwynen, Gilthleaf Dane. This is 2 green for a 3/4 reach. It's an elf. It is a legendary creature. Other elves you control get +1/+1, and whenever Dwynen attacks, you gain 1 life for each attacking elf you control. It's a nice one.
Yeah. It's there's not going to pump many of your creatures, like maybe like a third of them optimistically. But as long as you're pumping 1 creature, you're getting 4 or 5 worth of stats for 4 mana, you're going to be pretty happy.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't know if you want to give like a synergy or build around grade. This I think is kind of obvious.
So.
Like, yeah. I would give it a C+ to Dwynen.
Sure. Yeah, okay. Just assume that it's known that that's where the elf...
Yeah, basically. Elvish Rig Rower is 2 green for a 4/3. When it enters, return target permanent card from your graveyard to your hand. Yeah.
That is a big gravedigger.
That's a big gravedigger. Yeah, this card is great.
Yeah, this card's...
Ooh.
It even, like, it doesn't have the anti-looping clause, so 2 of these just kind of
Yeah,
go nuts.
wow. Didn't even think about that.
like a B plus.
Yeah, B plus for Elvish Grower.
Yeah, really good.
Awesome. Next up is Needletooth Pack. 3 green for a 4/5. Morbid. At the beginning of your end step, if a creature died this turn, put 2 +1/+1 counters on target creature you control.
That's a big trigger.
It is, yeah. It's it's not exactly make a 2/2, but 2/2 worth of stats is pretty big.
Yeah, 6/7 worth of stats that can grow even bigger for 5 mana. Like, you are willing to work for this type of trigger.
Yeah.
Like, you can even just like chump attack your 1/1 in.
Sure. Yeah, it's an upgrade from that point if you have anything to put it on.
Yeah.
I'll let you start the grade on this one. I've been starting the grade on most of them today.
Yeah, sure. I'm gonna give Needletooth Pack a B minus.
Yeah, I think that sounds about right to me too.
Okay.
Yeah, I was going between C plus and B minus, but yeah, B minus sounds good. Overrun, the grown test of players who played 2012, was it? And before this card was in like all the core sets, and they eventually took it out because people just felt it was either too unfun or too good. So this is 2 green for a sorcery. Creatures you control get +3/+3 and gain trample until end of turn.
So, I think in a lot of sets, Overrun would be very underwhelming, but I actually think it's going to be pretty decent here.
Yeah, I sort of started out being lowish on it, considering that when Overrun was like great, sets were slower, board styles were more common. Green is tough, but maybe a little less tough in this set with Llanowar Elf and some other just green sources that you might sneak in there. And
yeah, exactly.
Elves play well with this kind of effect. Like, they want an Overrun. Yeah, like I said, I started kind of low just when this card was first previewed. I was like, oh, people are going to overrate this because of its pedigree. But I do think it's going to be a pretty good, like a not quite premium uncommon, but a good one.
There's also just like the curves in this set are not that aggressive, and there's a bunch of life gain. So I think the average game in this set will be longer than what we've seen in a lot of the other play booster sets.
Yeah, I think so too. Yeah, so I think this is a... I think this is going to play out like a B minus, most likely. Maybe a C plus.
I don't think I think go C plus. I don't think it makes it into the B range.
Okay.
There's still a lot of removal in the set, but yeah.
Yeah, I mean, good with the tokens we talked about too. Yeah. I mean, in a non, elf heavy deck, green might be a little bit tough, but
yes.
Yeah. Okay. This is I read a little tweet. I can't remember who it was from. Maybe it was Dave Humphreys. No, I think it was Aaron Forsyth. He was saying he designed this card to be the crawworm of the new generation, the giant dummy that makes new players go, oh my god, that thing's massive. This is Quake Strider Ceratops. 3 green for a 12/8. 12/8 vanilla.
Literally double crawworm.
Double crawworm, yeah. Do we like it?
Is it good?
Yeah, is it good? I think it's playable. Like, I think it's not an embarrassing card. You want to give it trample some way. Garrick's Uprising or Balmor if you're very creative.
There's gonna be spots where you cast this though, and your opponent just like slams involuntary employment.
Oh god, just steals it, yeah, or just bounces it. Yeah, I do think it's gonna be a card that makes it into some decks. Let's just put it simply as that. I don't think it's great though. Still, I'm gonna give Quake Ceratops a D plus.
I'll go C minus.
Okay,
it is absolutely massive.
Massive, just huge. Yeah. Here's a better 6-drop, Affectionate Indrik. This is 5 and a green for a 4/4. When it enters, you may have it fight target creature you don't control.
Yeah, we saw Agatha's Champion in WoW, which was 5 mana but required, bargain. And that was one of the top uncommons in the set. So tacking on a mana makes this slightly worse, but this thing's still going to be pretty good.
Yeah, one thing to note as far as in-game stuff with this card. So the way it's worded is when this creature enters, you may have it fight target creature you don't control. The person who casts this kind of has all the power. Because if you cast this, your opponent casts this, and you go, okay, I'm going to save my creature with a pump spell. Maybe the pump spell would have your creature, kill the Indrik. They just like, okay, I don't want to fight. That's fine. So either way, you're getting something out of it. So just something to watch out for.
Yeah, because it's worded differently than the fight up to 1 or whatever.
Yeah, they've changed the wording
I'm
since.
okay with giving the person who's casting their green dumb 6 creature the power like that. I like that.
Yep. I would give Infection Indrik a B-.
Yeah, I'm with you there too.
Awesome. All right. And that's it. That was, I didn't want to call it before we started. I usually am like, I think this one's going to be a little bit shorter. But it actually was a little bit shorter than usual. We actually got through the cards, these simpler cards that we've played, a lot of them we've played before. And, my impression of this is I think this is going to be a pretty good draft set for the first 2 or 3 weeks. Like, it has a lot of really just, like, classic cards that are fun. I think the gameplay is going to be pretty solid. Like you mentioned, not a lot of depth, but we're getting a new set in like, a month and a half's time or whatever anyways, so it almost doesn't matter too much. I do think worth drafting if you're a drafter though. That's kind of the stamp I'll put on it.
Yeah, I see a lot of games ending with go wide and either like overrun or heroic reinforcements or whatever. So I could see that getting tired fast. But yeah, there's enough here that it doesn't feel like a core set. Like, I think there's some draft depth to here. It'll definitely keep me interested for the first couple of weeks. Apologies to anybody who were expecting more. Our set reviews are typically a little bit more in depth. We blew through this kind of quickly, and I've been blowing my nose a lot. Hopefully, I managed to mute myself for all of those, so you don't have to do a ton of editing.
Yeah, I didn't hear any stray sniffles. Don't worry.
We'll be back tomorrow for the Rares and Mythics, I guess.
Awesome. Yeah. Well, Mark, thanks for joining me on Day One Chat. Thanks for joining me. And as always, this is going to be on the podcast feed and the YouTube channel probably by the end of the night. If you're midnight Eastern time. And we'll see you tomorrow.